Hi, my name is Aya. You're watching Aya Reads, and as you can see by this stack that is precariously next to me, it has already fallen down once. These are 20 books. In fact, they are the top 20 romances according to Goodreads. And this is my video of me reading every single one of them. So grab yourself some snacks, grab yourself a drink because you're gonna be here for a while. Since at the time of filming this intro, I am about halfway through my list and already it is way too long. But anyway, I hope you enjoy it. I'm just gonna list these one by one in no particular order. Well, technically it's in order of biggest or smallest to biggest book, I guess, like in lengthwise. You cannot even see all of them. And then throughout the video, I will be telling you the synopses for these books. If you want to see both my prediction video and my reaction to the Goodreads Choice Awards, then I'll leave those videos linked for you. So let's get started because I don't want to make this too long considering the video is already very long. Wild Love by Elsie Silver. Play Along by Liz Stomford. Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage. Can you see that? King of Sloth by Anna Huang. This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. Leather and Lark by Bryn Weaver. Daydream by Hannah Grace. The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Laurie Gilmore. How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwan. As you can see, I'm reading this one right now. The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood. This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. Bride by Ali Hazelwood. Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Funny Story by Emily Henry. Lies and Weddings by Kevin Kwan. And last but most certainly not least, A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. Let me move this a bit. Okay. So these are the top 20. Like I said, I'll be reading every single one of them. There's timestamps down below. So if you are just interested in my thoughts on one particular book, check those timestamps out. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know by leaving a like if you did, because this really has taken me a lot of effort to read all these books and to film. So I would really appreciate the likes. And I would really appreciate any comment you can give this video. And if you don't have anything to say, leave me a prize emoji for the Goodreads Choice Awards. And I would really love to know your opinions. Obviously, the Goodreads Choice Awards, all of us have like a love-hate relationship with the Goodreads Choice Awards. Oh, and this will be because half of them, a little bit less than half of them I had already read prior to filming this video. So there are gonna be clips interspersed of other vlogs of mine where I had already read these books. So it's going to be a combination of, most of them are going to be new clips, but there are some older clips because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to read 20 books in the span of like 2 weeks. So yes, if you have been a longtime viewer of my channel, you will have already seen these clips if you have watched those videos. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video and cue to the vlog. Okay, so I know I look like a pale ghost, but honestly, I had the same problem last year. That is just the annoying part of filming in the afternoons during fall, moving into winter. So hopefully this is not too annoying. The Goodreads Choice just started. I actually just filmed my reaction video to it, which I'll leave linked for you in case you hadn't seen that yet. Honestly, the prognosis is looking good because I have read 10 out of 20, so I still need to read 10, and I have about 2 weeks and a day to read it. But I also really want to read The Courting of Bristol Keats and the new Nyaxia book. So anyway, moving on, that's neither here nor there. I just ordered every single book that I didn't own yet, so they'll be coming tomorrow. And then the only book I don't own yet that is not coming tomorrow is A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. I did read that one, but I'm just gonna show all that when all the books arrive and show you the haul, I guess. And sprinkled throughout this video, I will put in clips of the books I already read. They're probably gonna be just random, but I did just finish The Paradise Problem, which I did my first update for it a couple days ago, so I'll cue to that part. I'm here to give you an update for The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I'm actually not that far in. I'm only on page 77, and I have to tell you, I'm struggling with reading a little bit, which is bad because as I'm filming this, the Goodreads Choice Awards are in like 3 days. So I need to get over that because I for sure have to read like at least 10 books probably in like 2 weeks. So anyway, I thought I'd film this update because I still have my makeup on from my plans this afternoon. So I figured, you know, I'm sure I'll be looking like shit the rest, like for most of this vlog. At least when I'm somewhat presentable, let me film an update. So this book, which I already know is going to be in the Goodreads Choice Awards, is about West and Anna. And Anna is really, really struggling with life. She just got fired. And all of a sudden, her ex-roommate shows up. And this is an interesting roommate because technically he's her ex-husband, because when they were in college, there was part of student housing or family housing they wanted. And obviously in order to get that, do you like my sweater, by the way? I love it so much. It's my favorite. Anyway, moving on. Squirrel or Simba, moving on. They were in a marriage of convenience in the past, so that they could get this, they could rent this apartment for cheap. And her ex-husband's name is West. So now on her worst day, she decided to smoke some weed and just wallow in the circumstances of her life, which the way she was fired was so shitty, by the way. Another squirrel. I just realized. So I have the door to my balcony and there's like a giant handprint or two actually, on the door, which it looks a little bit like crime scene. So anyway, I don't know if those are my hands. Anyway, moving on. Can I actually? Yeah, they are. They're my handprints because my hands are very small, so they're nobody else's. Moving on, squirrel. So he shows up telling her that they actually never got divorced because he is the grandson of like the founder of this giant grocery chain in the US. And in order, obviously romance reasons, in order to get his inheritance, he has to be married for 5 years. So he figured, I already married this girl, let me actually stay married for 5 years. But now there's a problem because his sister is getting married and his mom, who he already told her about his wife and what she looks like, she already saw a picture, insists on him bringing her. And he feels, since he's so close to the deadline of getting his inheritance, he feels like he cannot deny her. So he shows up at her door and tells her that he wants her to pretend to be his wife and also pretend that she has been his loving wife for the past 5 years. But since his family is so filthy rich, he gives her basically a black credit card. He tells her that he'll pay her once he gets his inheritance and stuff like that. He is set to inherit 100 million, I'm pretty sure. Right? 100 million? Anyway, it doesn't matter. And yeah, but the problem also is that she's the complete opposite of his family. So his family, obviously rich, you know, whatever you imagine rich people sound like, dress like, behave like. She has pink hair. She just speaks her mind whenever she wants to. Like, she doesn't really have a filter. And now she has to pretend like she's this prim and proper medical student, which she's definitely not. She's an artist. So yeah. The only problem, Anna is feisty, foul-mouthed, messy, and the complete opposite of what the Weston family had anticipated for their son. He also has big issues with his father, who he hasn't seen in 5 years, so that is probably also going to come to a head. I do have to say, part of why I'm struggling with this book is I don't really like to read about rich people that much, and especially not these types of rich people where I'm sure, I mean, they already sound shallow and vapid. And his brother has kids that are called, let me actually look up their names. His kids' names are Reagan, Lincoln, Nixon, GW. Anyway, moving on. I don't know how I feel about reading about these people. I do have to say, so this was all before they got into their bungalow. I just finished the scene where they reach their bungalow, realize that they only obviously have one bed. There's no viable option for him to sleep somewhere else. They have a shower that is transparent so they can look at each other while they're showering, and that scene was very cute. So now that I'm really in the marriage of convenience vibe, I'm starting to be more intrigued. So we'll see. Obviously, I have read a similar book to this, from them, The Unhoneymooners, that I really liked. I just, already his mom made some comments where I'm like, girl. Anyway, we'll see. I guess I'll update you since I updated you this early, either once I'm finished or once I'm like halfway through. This is not that long, and I actually found it on Everand too, which I don't know, lately I've been having issues physically reading my books. I don't know what it is, but this is only 336 pages. So right now I'm filming this, it is Saturday. Sunday I don't have any plans, so I'm planning on reading this and also doing some other stuff. I have to clean and I have to edit a video that I filmed. Yeah, but other than that, I can just read the whole day probably. So maybe I'll finish this Sunday, and if not, definitely Monday. That is neither here nor there, actually, because I'm pretty sure since this is a book I have started before the Goodreads Choice actually got announced, this will be sprinkled in somewhere. So yeah, I guess you'll see me once I am further along in this book. Okay, so I actually just finished this right after I filmed my update or my reaction video. So I just say I did enjoy this. I gave it 4 stars in the end. The problems I had with it were problems you were supposed to have with all these rich people, basically. So yeah, we were not supposed to like them. That was clear. And I didn't really like them. Usually I don't film here in my bedroom, but I really didn't have any other choice because of the sun. Moving on. Okay, so first of all, this was Open Door, which their latest books that I have read weren't. So that was an interesting surprise. I do think they write sex scenes pretty well, so I'm glad they put them in here. So I feel like it was still not too graphic, but we did see more than, like, for example, the Unhoneymooners. I did enjoy both characters in the end, but I do have to say, Anna, like the way she just didn't pay attention to anything bothered me. Like it was to the point of being unrealistic. Like she lived with this man for years, yet she didn't even know his first name. Like how is that even possible? Like do you not talk to each other? So that was odd to me. Also like the whole marriage of convenience thing, the stipulation in the will, like those were all things like I get it, they're rich, but some things were just unbelievable to me. The whole like third act breakup, I do have to say I didn't really care too much about all that. Like I was just like, I didn't care because I was like, okay, so then you don't get millions of dollars, even though you already all have good jobs. Like that just prevented me from caring too much. And if that's the case, like if I don't even care about the third act breakup, then that means how much did I really love this couple in the end? Because otherwise I would care, I guess. But it was mainly revolved around the trust fund, stuff like that. Like I just didn't really care about all that. I did think these two were hot together. I loved her personality. I just, even though like I said, sometimes she didn't really seem to be too realistic. When she was her authentic self, I did enjoy that. I ended up giving it a 4-star in the end, so definitely not my favorite, and the thing with Christina Lauren books is I tend to forget about them quite quickly, so I do have to say, we'll have to see in the end when I do my final ranking where it will end up, because if I don't remember it 2 weeks from now, then that will say a lot. Some things that also were bothering me a little bit were her friendship seemed a little bit surface level. Okay, so technically Vivi was her only friend, but technically Jake was also supposed to be her friend. Like they went to college together, she lived together with Liam because of Jake, yet we never really saw that interaction too much. I did think Liam was a great hero. Like I just liked him, like a hot professor type, like yes. Yeah, and like the whole thing with the father, like the father did turn out to be a little bit of a cartoon villain type personality, but I guess sometimes that does happen, but I just couldn't believe the things this man did. And the fact that his mom, or his wife technically, didn't do anything. Like I could not really wrap my head around that. But yeah, at the end of the day, I did enjoy this book. I flew through it and I would recommend it. And I can definitely see why it made it into the Goodreads Choice Awards. So yeah, the next book I'm planning on reading is Swift and Saddled, which I actually already own. So let me grab that one. So Swift and Saddled. So this one I actually bought in the beginning of the year because I really like these retro covers. I think they're beautiful. I obviously have not read Done and Dusted yet. And I obviously didn't have the time. I don't know, I was debating about this too much to pre-read, I guess, the first book. Also, since they're companion books, it doesn't really matter. So I guess I'll do, just like I did with some of the other Goodreads Choice nominees last year, is I'll just read the second book, and then if I have time in December, I'll read the first one. So this is not too long. It's only 285 pages, so hopefully I'll finish it tomorrow. I guess I'll give you my update once I'm about halfway through. So very excited about this one. I've heard great things about it. Obviously, it's a cowboy romance. I'll also give you the synopsis once I'm halfway through. And I'm so excited. Like, I really love making this video. I really loved it last year. I had a blast. And this year, I'm very much looking forward to it. I really need it in my life right now. Like, the joy of completing like a list like that of 20 books. I guess I'll leave one of the books. Yeah, let's do a review of one of the books I read earlier in the year. Right here. I don't know yet which one. I guess that will be editing Aya's job. So Wild Love is the first book in Elsie Silver's new series called Rose Hill. So this book you follow Ford Grant, who's Willa from Heartless, he's her brother, and Rosie. Rosie's Ford's best friend's little sister. So they grew up together. Well, technically they grew up together. He was always there in the summers, and Rose Hill, that's like the only place where he felt at home. It's the only place where he felt like he had people he trusted aside from his family, because if you don't remember, Ford's father and Willa's father was a very famous, or is a very famous, guitar player for this very famous band. So they pretty much grew up in the limelight. Ever since then, he has become a billionaire, or almost a billionaire. He had his own bar, and then he started like a Spotify type thing. And now, because of betrayals, he decided he wanted to get out of the city and go back to the place where he's always felt at home, which is Rose Hill, to spend time with his friend. Rosie has left Rose Hill for 10 years to start like a city life, but then one day her boss gropes her and she threatens to go to HR, and instead he goes to HR and has her fired. So she goes back to the small town to stay with her brother for a while. And there she runs into Ford again, and she asks Ford if she can have a job at his, like, he wants to set up this whole new recording studio where artists can record without meddling labels, I'm pretty sure. So she asks for a job at his place, and he cannot deny her anything. So he says yes, because he has been pining for Rosie for years, like ever since he was a teenager. She's been the one that got away. She's been the one that he's always loved, and nobody ever came close. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows for them, because around the time that Rosie shows up, Ford gets the biggest surprise of his life, because a 12-year-old girl shows up and tells him that he's her biological father. Turns out when he was 19, he wanted to go to a concert, and his father didn't want to give him the money because he wanted to work for it. So instead, what did Ford do? He donated his sperm for $100. Cora, the little girl, her father has passed away and her mom has become clinically depressed. So she's basically looking for a place to stay, and Ford gives her that place. And while she's there, he falls in love with the little girl, but Rosie also falls in love with the little girl. And Rosie and Ford, well, Ford doesn't want to be just like her old boss, so he tries to keep things professional, but Rosie learns more about what happened in their past, because they always bicker and they have this great banter, and she always thought that he hated her, but it wasn't that. It was basically his mechanism for keeping her at a distance, because he didn't want to love his best friend's sister. So now they're back to bickering, but Rosie realizes that maybe there's something more going on, and he's not the quiet, nerdy guy he was. He's very handsome now. He has done things, like piney things in the past, that makes her see him in a different light and makes her see all these interactions in a different light. I really loved it. It's Elsie Silver. She's one of my favorite authors. I fell in love with this book. I gave it 5 stars. I loved the relationship between Rosie and Ford. I love how they constantly were bickering. I loved how their opposites attract. I love how he's Grump, she's Sunshine. And I also really love how honest they are with each other. And I really, really love this pining hero. One thing I also really loved was Cora. I thought she added such a great thing to this story. I loved how she wanted them to get together too. I loved how she also built up this wall around her. It slowly came crumbling down because of Ford and also because of Rosie. This was both sweet and very sexy. I think Elsie Silver does know how to strike a good balance, because it does take a while for them to finally confess, and it does take a while for them to have something sexual going on, and I thought that was perfect in this book, because when they finally do get together, it is explosive. Like, they work so well together. Like, some of the scenes in here are gonna definitely live in my mind rent-free. Ford is such a great hero, and even though, you guys know, billionaire romances technically are not really my favorite, and even though there are some scenes in here where he definitely splurges and shows his wealth, I do like the fact that that's not the case all the time. Usually, like, he's the type of guy that would, even though he has the money, he'd rather fix things himself. I appreciate that, because usually with the billionaire tropes, I just don't like them constantly throwing their money around. It just makes things too easy, and it's just not interesting to me. And yeah, I just really love their scenes together from the beginning. Like, I love their scenes at the dock. I loved reading her old diary entries. And I loved how Ford slowly revealed how much and how long he's been pining for her. I just love that. I just love the pining hero trope. I eat that shit up. It's 5 stars. Okay, so my order came in the mail, so let me unbox them with you. All of them came except for one. A Love Song for Ricky Wilde I just ordered, or I ordered yesterday, but it's only coming in like a week. So I have already read that book, but the reason I didn't own it yet was because I kind of wanted the paperback to match 7 Days in June, but that one is only getting released next year. So part of me wanted to wait for that, but now obviously I have to buy it. And that is definitely not a hardship, because I really, really love this cover. So I am glad that I get to own it in hardback, but like I said, it hasn't arrived yet. So you probably already seen these books, because I think I'm gonna just show them all off when I do my intro. Included, and I'll do that once A Love Song for Ricky Wilde gets here. So let me show you all the books. And I have to check them, because last year, half of them were damaged because they weren't packaged well. So Leather and Lark, the love of my Afterlife, which I like this cover. Oh, this is floppier than I thought it would be, because yes, this I believe is the UK one. Usually they're more stiff, but this one is floppy, so I'm glad about that. Yeah, so I also got the Pumpkin Spice Cafe because there was a sale, and since I'm gonna be reading this series anyway, let me actually bring you a little bit closer. Yep. Okay. Since I'm gonna read the sequel anyway, I figured let's just buy the first one as well, because I really love this cover. How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwan. And in this box, the last one, oh yeah, so I got the special edition one, which has sprayed edges, but The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. So let me open the next package. And let me actually remove the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, considering that is not one of the nominees. The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, and I really like the shiny detailing both these books have. So happy about that. Daydream by Hannah Grace. Yeah, these books definitely better shape than last year. The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. And last, oh, this one is gonna be ginormous. This is so big. First of all, it's taller than all the other ones, and it's definitely bigger. So this is definitely the largest one out of them all. A forbidden affair erupts dramatically amid a decadent Hawaiian wedding in this hilarious, sophisticated, and thrilling plotted story of love, money, murder, sex. Okay. I don't know. I don't think this is the typical romance book, but anyway, Lies and Weddings by Kevin Kwan. As you could see by my review of Paradise Problem, I don't really love reading about rich people, since Crazy Rich Asians obviously was definitely about rich people. We'll see how I like this one. Let me show you them all. So these 8 I just got, and then I already owned 11, I'm pretty sure. No, 12, I guess. And I still need one more. So happy about that. I also have an update for Swift and Saddle. So right now I'm on page 170. So I'm over halfway through, because this book doesn't even have 300 pages. So 285. So far I'm liking it. I'm not loving it. Basically you follow Weston and Ada, and Weston is the brother of the hero from the first book, or the brother of the heroine from the first book. So I've not read that book yet. but you basically follow this family, I believe, in the series. Some parts remind me a little bit of Elsie Silver, specifically Flawless, because she's there. I'm gonna zoom you out a little. I feel like I'm in your face. Anyway, because she's there, she's a interior designer, and West, he's the middle child, and he always felt a little bit inferior to his older brother, wants to renovate the old house on the property to become guest housing. So my battery's almost dead. Let's see if it can make it. So he hired Ada, but on her first night there, they don't know who each other are. They meet in a bar. They end the night kissing. And then the next day, she shows up and sees him there and realizes that he's actually her boss. He hired her. So that's a little bit awkward. She basically thinks she's not good enough, people don't like her, she thinks she's very unlikable, and she really doesn't think anybody truly loves her, not friends, not partners. She recently got divorced, and it sounds like that was a very bad marriage to a guy that didn't even like her, let alone love her. He was diagnosed with major depressive disorder, so he actually does take medication for that. I tend to like seeing that in books because I have an important family member who also deals with depression. So, and so far it feels like it's handled pretty well, although we haven't really seen him. So he's on medication now, and so far he's steady. So we'll see. I don't know. So this book doesn't feel that deep to me. And like I said, it reminds me of Powerless because they also have a dad who's kind of like a matchmaker that I like. She's staying at his house with the whole family, well, with him and his dad while the renovations are going on. But I don't know, for now it feels a little bit surface level. I feel like, yes, he's dealing, even though I feel like it's handled pretty well, we don't really go that deep into it. It's more surface level. And I feel like her stuff with her ex, yes, she mentions it a lot, but I don't really feel like I know that part of her that well, and we're almost done with this book, so I don't think we're gonna get there, is my point. And yeah, it's also a pretty slow burn. She keeps him away a little bit too much, in my opinion, because normally I wouldn't mind, because in like a book and the first 170 pages, okay, the fact that they didn't really express feelings, okay, so she's just getting on board with him taking her out, which is fine in a regular size book, but this doesn't even have 300 pages. So I feel like, okay, get moving. They still need to fall in love. And I'm just pretty sure, obviously, usually there's a third act conflict in there somewhere. So I don't know. Right now it feels like a 3-star. Definitely not bad. I am enjoying it, but I don't think it's going to be my favorites in this vlog, which is fine. Not all of them can be. I do, like I said, for cover wise, this gets a 10 out of 10 because it's beautiful. Like I said, I love these retro covers. But yeah, yesterday I didn't read as much as I wanted to, but today I'm doing the Pomodoro method. Basically 25 minutes of reading, and then I can do 10 minutes of something else, and then I have to get back to 25 minutes of reading. I was supposed to work from home today, but I'm gonna do that tomorrow because I don't know, I got up too late, I was too tired, and since I have the week off anyway, I just need to work one day. I can decide that, and that's fine. So I'm very excited. I'm also happy that I own all the books now. Yeah, I guess I'll update you once I finish this one. Maybe I will have already started another book, but we'll see. And yeah, I cannot wait. I think I'm gonna do like a short, both on Instagram and on YouTube, actually filming all, like the whole stack. I really liked doing that last year, so hopefully I can do it this year too. The love song for Ricky Wilde needs to show up, and then we could do that. So yeah, I'll talk to you later. Okay, it's a couple hours later and I just finished Swift and Saddled. I don't know if I said it in my update. Yeah, I think I said it feels like a 3-star. It is a 3-star for me. This was a quick read, like I flew through it. It took me a couple hours to read. If you want like a quick, fun cowboy romance, I would say definitely pick this up. This did nothing offensive, but I truly don't think this story will stick with me. I don't think I'm gonna be thinking about these characters in a couple weeks time, so we'll have to see for my tier ranking if I even remember them. So I guess that's why it's a 3-star. I didn't actively hate anything, but like I said in my update, it did all feel surface level to me. There are some couples here that I am interested in. I am looking forward to going back and reading Done and Dusted, but the couple I'm most interested in is the couple in the next book, which coincidentally, the next book just came out. So I do think I'm gonna prioritize the next book in December if I can get to it, which are Teddy and Gus. That is a hate to love, and That sounds amazing to me. I think ultimately my main gripe with this book is that it felt a little bit too short, which is good. Obviously, like I get all these, especially indie books, get longer and longer and longer, so it is refreshing to get a little bit of a shorter book. But because of that, we didn't really delve into that past that much, which would have been fine if past wasn't mentioned that much. Like, so, what's her name? Ada, she was described as being the way she was because of her past. Yet we never really knew what her parents were like. Like, are they the reason that she is what she is? Obviously, her ex-husband played a major part in the way she is now, yet we never really delved into that relationship. And I get it, you don't want to dwell too much on the past, and it's technically not that kind of story, but I do want to understand my characters, and to understand my characters, we have to delve into the past, especially if you're relating how they are like with the past. You know what I mean? So I just felt like we focus way too much on West, his family, and his past, which makes sense because obviously this whole series is about his family, and it obviously we see his family because that's where they spend time. I just felt like her parents were just cardboard cutouts that we slid into the story whenever it was convenient. That made her not a well-rounded character, in my opinion. Yeah, I guess that is my biggest problem, I guess, I have with this book. I did like their communication, I guess. Like, I liked how mature he was. Like, at one point, she just wanted to run away because at one point they would have to become long distance, and I liked how he soothed her fears and how mature he was about all that. And I really liked that. And also, before they had sex, the fact that she was afraid of not being wet enough, and him actually telling her that his antidepressants sometimes make him not hard, which I like those conversations. Not every couple is gonna have amazing sex the first time around. Although I do have to say, they only had sex twice, I believe, like that we can actually see it twice or 3 times, and they didn't have any issues. So it would have been even more interesting if we actually got to see them kind of struggling a little bit. But I mean, it's only 300 pages, so I cannot get mad at that. I guess those are all my opinions. I would say if you read and really liked the first book, pick this book up because those characters, like, this is a story where previous characters and next characters do make appearances. Yeah, all the characters we saw were charming, and I am looking forward to reading the rest of the series. But I don't think this book is going to be my favorite in the series. I just don't think that. And that is fine. Not every book is going to be your favorite. So I looked up the ratings. So far, I believe this one has the lowest rating. Let me actually see if I'm not talking bullshit here. So this one has, okay, no, that's actually not true what I'm saying. So Done and Dusted has a little bit of a lower rating, but it has double the ratings, which makes sense. That's always the case for the first book. Obviously, only people who really like the first book are going to continue on with the series. So Swift and Saddled has a 3.96 average rating, and Lost and Lassoed, which is the one I'm looking forward to, has a 4.35. But so far, it only has 15,000 ratings, and it only just released. Yeah, it released beginning of November. So I am like, can you even see me? I feel like I'm invisible. So usually I tend to not really like these kinds of stories. Like, you have to really convince me with these kinds of stories because technically they've known each other not that long. So she needs to delve into more of their characters. Whereas for example, the first and the third book, these characters have known each other for a year. So in that case, the author doesn't need to do as much legwork to build that relationship. And part of building a relationship means going very much into the backstory of characters, in my opinion. I did really love his dog. His dog was adorable. And I really loved how much he loved animals. Like, at one point, there was a scene in here where he rescues a calf. And the way he takes care of her is just adorable. Like, I really had no complaints about Weston. And I guess I had some complaints about Ada, but truly that was not the character's fault. It was kind of a little bit the author's fault. I wish this book was 50 pages longer and that those 50 pages were spent on her and her backstory and her family and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess those are my thoughts. 3 stars, which means it's gonna be definitely lower on the ranking. But I guess you'll see that at the very end because I'm just gonna do the overall ranking at the very end. The next book I'm gonna be reading is Play Along. I'm not going to be starting it tonight because as I'm reading these books, The Courting of Bristol Keats has come out, which I'll leave that linked for you, and I really want to do a new releases vlog for that. So Right now I'm hating myself for that decision because that adds another 500 pages to my already long list of books I already have to read. But I actually today I did the Pomodoro technique, which I think a lot of booktubers do that for reading sprints. So basically 25 minutes of reading and then I get a little bit of a break to watch YouTube or to clean or to do something else. Or edit actually, and then do another 25 minutes. And so far I did 10 sessions of reading and I have been doing well because so far I read 248 pages, which the last time I did that was a long time ago. So I do think I'll be able to read 300 pages today because it's not even 7 o'clock. So I'm gonna go get some cookies. I'm craving cookies with chocolate on top, so I'm gonna get that. Then I'm gonna take a break a little bit from this vlog, and then tomorrow I'll start Play Along, and I'm very excited about this one. Okay, I just filmed this entire update with no sound. Love that for me. So this is probably gonna be a quicker update. So I'm currently reading Play Along. I'm on page 100, and this is the third book in the Windy City series. You follow Isaiah Rhodes, who is Kai's brother, who was the hero in the previous book, in the third one, Caught Up. And he is a baseball player, and he has had a long time crush on the athletic trainer, Kennedy. And basically 3 years ago they met, and he accidentally overheard a conversation on her first day working for the Windy City Warriors with her and her boss. And her boss was rescinding the offer of making her like the athletic doctor, like the team doctor, because he found out that she was a woman and he doesn't want to have a woman on the team because he's a sexist pig. So instead he offers her the position of athletic trainer, and she ends up agreeing because she wants to get her foot in the door, because sports medicine is a very male-dominated field. So he's the only one who knows how overqualified she is for the position. Wait, let me actually... one second. Okay. A little bit more light. Moving on. So he's been keeping that secret for 3 years, but he's also had a crush on her for 3 years. And then 8 months ago, she broke off her engagement, and he's kind of been on a mission to get her to go out with him, but she thinks he's not serious because he's always funny, making jokes, laughing all the time. And also it is not allowed for a member of the staff to date a player. But they run into each other in Vegas and they end up drunkenly getting married in Vegas. And we actually found out about this in the third book. That book, one of the last scenes is Isaiah telling his brother that he got married to Kennedy, and Kai's jaw was on the floor along with mine. But obviously, like I said, there's technically the staff and the players are not allowed to date, but a couple years ago there was a player who was married to like the team photographer. So when the manager finds out what they did and threatens to fire Kennedy, because of course he's going to fire Kennedy and not Isaiah, Kai tells him that they've been dating, they're in a serious relationship, they've been dating for 3 years, and this is a serious marriage. And his manager cannot do anything about it because the precedent was set that a player and a staff member can be married. So now they have to, where Kennedy wanted to annul this marriage, now they have to actually pretend that they are married and happy and in love. Isaiah, like I already said, he's like basically the clown of the group. He constantly makes people laugh. He's laughing all the time himself. The reason that is when he was 13 and Kai was 15, their mother passed away, and Kai was 100% responsible for his little brother. And to kind of brighten up his day a little bit, Isaiah would do anything in his power to make Kai laugh, or to use his charm to get them like freebies, because they couldn't afford a lot of things. And that basically has been his defense mechanism. And Kennedy seems to be the only one who realizes that. So there's already a scene where she's like, you know, you can be mad at me. You don't have to pretend to be happy all the time. Already there was this scene with Isaiah and Kai and little Maxie. You know, little Maxie was a scene stealer in Caught Up, and already he's a scene stealer in Play Along, because he's talking now and he's just the sweetest little boy in the entire universe. And I already loved the relationship between Kai and Isaiah, and I love seeing more of them in this book. Kennedy has some issues with her family. Also, her stepbrother actually is Isaiah's longtime rival. I might mix up Isaiah and Kai in this review, so forgive me, but that's also an interesting plot line, the fact that her stepbrother is Isaiah's rival. So far, we haven't seen a scene with them in this book yet. We have seen a scene with them in the last book that did not go well, but I am interested to see that dynamic because her stepbrother seems to be a good guy. I mean, she likes him and he seems to be different from the rest of her family who seem awful. She has some issues with physical touch since she's never been hugged as a child, so that's an interesting plot line to explore. He seems to be colorblind, I think, because so far there have been some mentions of him not really knowing what color her hair is, and also him showing up with mismatched socks, stuff like that. I'm loving being back in this world. It's weird that I haven't read this book yet, but this book came out when I was smack dab in the middle of my reading slump in July. By the time I was out of my reading slump, the Goodreads Choice Awards were close enough, and I knew this one was gonna make it, so I just pushed it off until now, and I'm so happy to be reading this. I'm flying through it. I love these characters with my whole heart and soul. I love the way she writes a romance. And oh yeah, one thing I forgot to talk about is, so like I said, she's underqualified for this position, but there is a job opening in 6 months in California, and so their marriage is only supposed to last for 6 months. And obviously she tells him there's no romantic feelings there's gonna be no romantic feelings involved, so don't think about it, but he's gonna make sure. So he's on a mission to make her fall in love with him in these 6 months. But there's also another thing, which obviously is gonna come ahead in the third act conflict. So the manager, the one I talked about, he's retiring, and the person taking over the position is his granddaughter. So she already had a thought of, wait, if she's going to be the manager, and if in a universe where I would stay in Chicago, maybe I could become, like, maybe if she knew about what happened and the fact that I'm overqualified for the position, maybe the new manager would be more sympathetic and would offer me a position as an actual doctor and not an athletic trainer. I already know how this is going to end up in like the third act, I think. Obviously I don't know for sure, but so far I'm loving it. I already love Isaiah. This is a Grump Sunshine where she's the grump, and I tend to love those stories. But obviously there are already some scenes where he's definitely anxious. His mother died while she was driving during a storm, and already there was a heartwarming scene where there was a storm and he basically texted everybody he cared about to make sure they were home and to make sure to tell them not to drive, which just broke my heart. And obviously Kennedy was one of them. I'm very much endeared to him already. So yeah, I'm definitely enjoying my time. So I'm a little bit behind on this challenge, so I really need to make up for it this weekend. Right now it is 1 o'clock, I think, maybe 2. So hopefully I can get to page 300. My ultimate goal would be to finish it today, but I don't think I can. But at least on Sunday and Monday, I don't really have anything going on, so I can definitely read a lot during those days. And then on Tuesday, I have a commute where I can read a lot. And on Wednesday, I know that I can also read a lot. There's also a commute, and I have a little bit more time to read on Wednesdays anyway, so we'll see, but that's neither here nor there. I'm very much enjoying it. I guess I'll update you either when there's a very cute scene that I really want to respond to immediately, or like we'll see. I don't know yet. Okay, so I finished Play Along, and this took me longer to finish than I thought it would because it took me 4 days to finish. I think I know why, so let's get into it. I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. I debated, should I just give it 5 stars, but it was missing a little bit of the magic that The Right Move and Caught Up had. And since I gave both those books 5 stars, this I definitely liked a little bit less. I liked it more than Mile High, so therefore 4.5 feels fitting. And I don't know if it's my mood or what I've been going through in my romantic life. I don't know. Like, Isaiah to me felt unrealistically perfect. And even though he was struggling with a lot of things, I don't know, like the way he was so mature and clear of what he wanted and that he wanted Kennedy and nobody else, to me, I was like, but what is that based on though? Because most of that is based on 3 years that we did not see So I guess I felt a little bit of a disconnect with the romance. But I fully acknowledge it might have something to do with me and my own issues in my own romantic life. I mean, I'm going to be fully honest about that. What I did love, however, was obviously I love her writing style. It's very easy to fly through, but I felt the reason it took me very long to finish is I was not really compelled to pick it up when I put it down. So yeah, while I was reading it, I was enjoying it. Obviously, like, I love the way she writes the found family in here, because you do get a lot of cameos, especially from Kai, obviously, because Isaiah is his brother, and little Maxie and Miller, but also Indy, Ryan, Stevie, Xander's. Yeah, so obviously I loved seeing all that, and I like seeing his camaraderie with his teammates, but that also for me, see, I don't remember, so Travis and Cody are his friends, his best friends apparently, but we never really got to see, I don't know, that to me also didn't feel like that realistic. Like, I don't know, I also didn't really believe in their friendship. I don't remember them from Caught Up. I don't know if they played a big part in it, but yeah, it to me those parts to me felt more like tell than show. Like, I got told a lot that they were his best friends, yet I never really saw a lot of their friendship. Another shining star in here was Monty. I love Monty. I loved him in Caught Up, obviously, but he also played a beautiful part here. I really loved seeing Isaiah struggle with his anxiety. I loved how he was trying to get through that in this book, and Kennedy helping him with that. And I really like in these stories that professional help, like a therapist, stuff like that, is very encouraged. Like that played a big part in Mile High, and Isaiah is very open to getting professional help for his anxiety. Yeah, I did like that in the end, but I don't know, like I said, that was just like a part that's missing. I cannot really put my finger on it. I feel like, yes, like I think what perfectly sums it up is the tell not show, because also Kennedy's character sometimes felt off to me. Yes, we got told her family was so awful, and that she never felt at home with her family, which I believe that, obviously, but then like her family didn't really play any major part in her life, where you would think they would, considering they were so controlling and did affect her life in a big way. I don't know if I'm explaining myself correctly. Like, usually when you have this girl who's very rich and her parents have these expectations for her, these parents that force her to get married to somebody so that he can take over the hotel business, it just feels like it's too easy for them to just accept her saying, I don't want to do that, and then moving on with her life. Especially since they apparently, like, she's rich. Like, she either gets money or she has gotten money from them. Like, she's okay working a job that she's very much underqualified for, and I would assume underpaid for, right? I don't know, there was just like still some questions. Usually in stories like this, the family would play a more important part in the story, and felt like they were more used as a plot device to explain her character, which is fine, but then I feel like if they had such a big influence also in her adult life, and it doesn't feel that realistic for them to not be involved at all. Like, we've only seen them once, and it wasn't even a big deal at all. Like, her mother made some snide comment and then left it at that. I don't know if I'm explaining myself correctly here. I guess those are my thoughts. Yeah, I always tend to love fake relationships. So obviously in this book, they had to fake being married for a big part of it, that I also obviously really loved. And I loved how she softened for him, and that ultimately the fact, like, it was explained pretty well why she was so comfortable touching him. It's because she trusts him, because he has shown her in these last 3 years that he is trustworthy. So I love that the Vans that she wore in her wedding, that kept coming up over and over again. Obviously, that reminded me of Indy's Converse shoes she wore. So yeah, overall, obviously, Liz Tomfort, I love her writing style, I love her books, but out of all of them, this is not really my favorite, and that's fine. Obviously, like, not every book can be a 10 out of 10. I'm currently on page 154 of King of Sloth, and I'm really, really enjoying it. This book is a little bit longer than the other ones we've gotten in the series so far, even though I've only read the second and third book so far. I already appreciate it, because I thought King of Greed, even though I gave that one 5 stars, I thought it was too short. I really would have loved for it to have been at least 50 pages longer. So already I'm happy. Well, I mean, I say that now, I'm only 32% of the way through. But King of Sloth is the fourth book in the Kings of Sin series by Anna Huang. You follow Sloan and Xavi, I guess. I don't know how to pronounce that. We've seen them in at least the second and third book. Maybe we've even seen them in the first one, but I don't think so, because I've not read the first book, like I said. He is this trust fund baby who never did a day's work in his life, and he's the king of sloth, so he's very lazy, according to her. She's his publicist, hired by his father to keep him in check, basically. He has been interested in her. He's constantly flirting with her, and she keeps him at a distance because it's a conflict of interest. Should they get together? Plus, she thinks he's lazy and stuff like that, so he's constantly partying and she doesn't want to have anything to do with that. But then he ends up convincing her that she needs to take a vacation because she's constantly working. She has a stick up her ass, according to him. And he kind of manipulates the situation into her making a deal with him so that she'll go on vacation with him. So they do, and there they get a little bit closer. But then his father died. He and his father have had a terrible relationship ever since his mother died. His father leaves a stipulation in the will that he'll only get his $7 billion inheritance if he becomes a CEO. If he stays a CEO for 5 years, and also if he is like a good CEO, and the people deciding whether or not he's a good CEO are 5 people, one of which is Sloan, and also Dante Russo, actually, from King of Wrath. So Sloan is now going to be one of the reasons he'll either get or doesn't get his inheritance. So if it doesn't go to him, it'll go to charity. So both Sloan and Xavier, I think it's Xavier, whatever, Xavier have issues with their families. There is a mystery going on with how his mom died. His father for sure blames him, and he blames himself too. And ever since then, him and his father just have not had a good relationship at all. He's not sad that his father got sick. He's not sad that his father died. And that is like also, like, the public knows that. Well, they don't know that he's not sad that his father died, but it is well known that there's a rift between them. And then Sloan comes from this very wealthy family, and something happened in her past that has something to do with her father and one of her sisters that made her leave 5 years ago, never look back. She doesn't have any contact with her family apart from her youngest sister, who she goes and sees when her father and stepmother are not around. And when she left all that life behind, and now she is a PR consult. Like, she's the CEO of like a PR agency, and one of her client is Xavier. I'm really loving it. Anna Huang, I just fly through her book. I just always love her writing style. So far, it feels very slow burn because, like I said, we're 32% of the way through. They have had some moments of like lingering touches, of like longing glances. It's clear that he's been pining for her because they've been working together for 3 years. It's clear that he finds her attractive and that he's interested in her. But so far in this book, 30% of the way through, nothing happened. Not even a kiss or something. And obviously, like I said, a lot has been going on. Like, now his father recently passed away, and he needs to figure out how to become CEO of something. Because Sloan is rooting for him, and she tells him that it doesn't specify that he necessarily needs to be CEO of his dad's company. He can be like CEO of any company. So I'm now at the part where he's trying to figure out what kind of company he could be CEO for. And actually Kai is going to be helping him. So that's Kai from King of Pride. So far, I'm really loving it. I cannot really tell you a lot about the relationship so far. They are attracted to each other. They do have chemistry. This is pitched as Grump Sunshine, and so far, I mean, we've seen Sloan be grumpy in the other books, but so far, even in her interactions with Xavier, it's not really... I have seen way grumpier heroines than her, so she does care about him, and she knows that he has a lot of potential, and I guess that is why she is often disappointed in him, because she knows that he can do more. But I think his father has constantly told him that he's no good and he cannot achieve anything. So that really has messed him up. And yeah, those are my thoughts so far. Sometimes when I'm at 30%, I can see where my rating will go. So far, I'm not sure. I guess we'll see. I've given the second book 3 stars and the third book I've given 5 stars. And the billionaire trope is not one of my favorite tropes. So if the other tropes work for me, then there's a good chance that I will really love this book. But like I said, we'll see. And I'm very interested to know what happened with Sloane's past. I'm interested to know what happened in Xavier's past. So there's a couple mysteries that hopefully we'll get answers to. So I finished King of Sloth an hour ago, and I needed to sit with my thoughts a little bit because I was really debating what rating I should give it, and I'm still not 100% sure. For now, it's gonna be a 4. So by the rating, you can see that I definitely really enjoyed it. I love Anna Huang's writing style. I think she has the perfect combination of romance and smuttiness. I always know that I can count on her that... Oh, it's storming outside or thundering. Well, what was I saying? Yeah, so I can count on her. Her smutty scenes are usually very great. The thing that prevented this from being a 5-star for me is this did feel too long, because this book is quite a bit longer than the other books in the series, and to be honest, I don't really understand why. Because if I compare it to King of Greed, for example, which I honestly thought it was a little bit too short, because I felt like that book had a lot going on. Like, you had everything that happened up to their relationship crumbling, and then everything after that. And I remember saying that I wished we got more flashback chapters of them still being happy before his greed took over. Whereas in this book, I felt like, even though I was never bored while reading it, I did feel like at the end of the day, if I look back at everything that happened, I don't think it justifies being that long, because really, like, so they went on vacation and then everything happened with him trying to set his company up. Having said all that, the pages do add to me really believing their love story, because at one point I was like, okay, are they convincing me that they're really in love? And at the end of the day, they did, because Xavier, like, really, first of all, he definitely fell first, and he fell hard for sure. And they both had some issues in their childhoods that they definitely needed to address, and I feel like Anna Huang addressed them perfectly. And this book had some amazing cameos, like more than the other ones, I'm pretty sure, because we heard about Jules. She had a part in him setting up his new club. We had at least 2 face-to-face interactions with Alex from Twisted Love. Obviously, all the characters from the Kings of Sin series made an appearance. We heard about Christian Harper a lot. So a lot of characters from different books made an appearance. And also we heard a lot about Queen Bridget and Rhys and the fact that they had a little baby. So obviously I really loved all the cameos in here. And I did really love Xavier and Sloane. But I mean, I say all that. You guys know that billionaire romances, it's not that I hate that trope. It's just not one of my favorites. Especially this type of billionaire where he's basically a trust fund baby and he constantly keeps throwing money around just to make his life a little bit easier. I don't know why, I just don't like that. Like, at least a part of this book is him trying to set up this new company from the ground up. I prefer that over him just constantly throwing money around, because to me it feels like there's no stakes then. If you can buy yourself out of anything, then what are the stakes in the book? But yeah, having said all that, I did really love it. I would highly recommend it, but to me it's just not a 5. It didn't wow me as much as other 5-star books do. And honestly, and I say this having just finished reading it, but I'm really wondering at the end of the month if I'm gonna remember them as vividly as other couples I've read about. And I'm leaning towards a no, and that is why it's not a 5-star. Like, I definitely enjoyed this couple while I was reading them, but I don't think they will stand the test of times as far as couples that really will stick with me go. Not like Alessandra and Dominic, for example, or Rhys and Bridget, or Josh and Jules. Like, those 3 couples are definitely my favorite Anna Huang couples, and I don't think this couple will make the list. And that is fine. Not every couple will be a favorite couple, of course. It just doesn't work that way. I would say definitely check this out. Xavier did some very swoony things, and it was obvious that he really loved her, and the things he did for her were very sweet. And this is like an ice queen heroine, where she really reminded me of Cameron Diaz's character in The Holiday, which The Holiday is one of my favorite movies of all time. She could cry, Sloane. And of course, there's going to be a scene in this book where she does burst into tears, and it does have something to do with Xavier. But yeah, if you really like The Holiday and you really appreciate that storyline of a woman who cannot cry, then I think you'll like Sloane very much. And I like both characters individually, and I like them together. But like I said earlier, I don't know if they'll stand the test of time as far as like favorite couples are concerned. I am currently reading The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. I'm on page 99, and basically this book is about Emma, who is a writer. Like, she wants to be a screenwriter, but she's a full-time caretaker for her father who has, she explained it, Meniere's disease that messes up his balance. I do remember that disease. I learned about it in school or in university. Basically, he fell while rock climbing. He cannot live on his own or drive, so he needs full-time care, and she's his full-time caretaker. And because of that, she has basically kept her dreams on hold, because she had this deal with her sister that she would take care, like she would take the first 10 years taking care of her dad so her sister can finish high school, can finish college, and then her sister will take over the next 10 years. And now her manager, who is also coincidentally her ex-boyfriend, has this amazing opportunity for her, which is co-writing for this big, famous Hollywood screenwriter, Charlie, because he usually writes like all kinds of movies, but he's never written a rom-com, and now he has to, and it's terrible. So since she really loves romantic movies and rom-coms, he thinks she's perfect for the job to help him with the script. She at first doesn't want to because she doesn't want to ask her sister to take care of their dad, but once her sister finds out about this opportunity, she doesn't give Emma a choice. So now she's in LA, but Charlie really doesn't want her help until eventually he relents, and now they have to work together on this screenplay. But he doesn't want to write a rom-com, so she only wants to help him, at least for the point where I'm at now, she wants to help him if he's serious about actually getting the movie made, and he only wants to write the script to be passable, because if it's passable but not good, then it's not his fault that the movie is not actually gonna get, like the script is not actually gonna get picked up to become a movie. Apparently that's a thing in Hollywood. So far I don't really have a lot of thoughts because only 100 pages of the way through. I am reading this pretty easily, honestly. Like it did in no time. I read almost 100 pages, but I don't really have any concrete thoughts yet. So we only get her point of view. So I guess I'll give you my thoughts once I actually finish it. I think that's the best way to go about it. Tomorrow I'm traveling to Rotterdam. So I have a long commute, and then at my parents' I usually also read more than I usually do. So I anticipate finishing this tomorrow, so I guess I'll give you an update at my parents' house. And I don't know which book I'm gonna start after, but I guess I'll tell you tomorrow. So I finished 2 books, and I wanted to come here earlier, but the last couple of days were kind of rough a little bit mental health wise, so I didn't want to be on camera. But I do have updates. Let's start with the book I finished first, which is the Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. This took me way too long to finish. This barely has 300 pages, and I really didn't want to read this book. I gotta be honest. In my first update, I didn't really have a whole lot of opinions, which in hindsight makes sense because this is just not that good, honestly. I'm not gonna lie. I think this and the next book, I think I've come to the conclusion that single point of view stories are rarely for me. I don't know. I tend to not, like, I tend to really prefer dual point of view stories, especially if the main characters are clueless, which it was the case in this book and the next one. Yeah, mostly I think the overall thing for this book is that I just was bored with it. I didn't care at all. I didn't like either character really. The worst one was for sure Charlie. I honestly didn't know why she liked him because he was so unlikable in my opinion. He was a dick to her constantly, and she kept forgiving him. And we never really got any real reasonings as to why she forgave him. Yeah, so I could not stand him. I gave this book 2 stars, by the way, if that was not clear, because I did find myself laughing out loud a couple times, so I couldn't give it 1 star, but 2 star I think is fitting. I thought these 2 had no chemistry whatsoever, and I didn't understand why they liked each other. Like, I guess I could understand from her point of view because she liked him as a screenwriter, but other than that, he was, like, I truly do not understand why she fell in love with him. And because we never really got his point of view and he never really explained what he loved about her, I also didn't understand why he fell in love with her. So I really didn't think they had any chemistry. And Emma, I liked in the beginning, but especially towards the end, the things that came out of her mouth when it came to her sister, that to me, like, I wouldn't say she was an unlikable character, but I was side-eyeing her a lot. I was like, how can you say those things to your sister and then get mad when she essentially says the same things to you? Another pet peeve of mine is, so if you watched my previous Goodreads Choice Awards vlog, then you know this pet peeve, but I cannot stand it in a book when there are celebrities and the author mixes real celebrities with fake celebrities. Pick one. Either mention the real celebrities, which you probably can't because some of them are characters in the story, or then just stick with fake celebrities, even if it's gonna be very clear who you are talking about. But like, we had a Meryl Streep like in here, and she was talking to a fake person. Like, I don't like that. And I get it, it's nitpicky, but I mean, everybody has their pet peeve. That one is mine. To be honest, so I finished this yesterday. Yeah, I think I finished it yesterday morning. I already forgotten everything. Like, I wrote down my thoughts. Those are the ones I remember. And other than that, I don't really remember a whole lot about it. Most of this book is just them trying to get this manuscript and then him kind of being wishy-washy of whether or not he wants it to actually be a thing. There are health scares in here. Multiple ones actually, both from one of the main characters and also side characters. Yeah, I guess those are my thoughts. I really don't have a whole lot. It's just 2 stars. I wouldn't recommend it, honestly. Yes, sometimes I laughed, that's true, but if we're talking about whether or not this was a rom-com, I don't know. Yeah, I guess those are my thoughts. Next, a book I just finished is The Love of My Afterlife. Okay, so this, you follow a girl named Delphi, and the book starts with her choking on a burger and dying, and then she goes to this afterlife where she meets this girl who tells her that she's her afterlife therapist. Oh, so in the afterlife she meets her soulmate, and her therapist tells her, you know what, I'm willing to make a deal with you. There is this clause that if you do something in the world, then you can live again, something like that. So she wants her to find her soulmate, even though she only knows his first name and the first letter of his last name. If she can find him in the next 10 days and kisses him or gets him to kiss her, then she can stay alive. So obviously Delphi jumps at the chance because the last decade of her life, she has not been living at all. It's basically been work and then just sitting on the couch watching TV. She does have an elderly neighbor who she, in the past 2 years, has been taking care of. But other than that, she doesn't have any friends. She doesn't have any romance. She doesn't really have a life. So she agrees. Basically, this book is her trying to find the soulmate of hers. And then in these 10 years, she realizes that she has not been living, and she makes all these friends and really finds the meaning in life and finds what she's been missing all these years and makes friendships. And oh, she does fall in love, and it may or may not be the guy he's her soulmate. If it was not clear by my synopsis, this is not really a romance. This is about a girl who, because of her impending death, realizes what's really important in life and how she has been stuck in the past and has basically been defined by a girl that used to be her friend, and then she betrayed her and started bullying her, and because of that she has kept everybody at an arm's distance, and she now realizes what's really important in life, which is friendships and trying to get yourself out there. The romance part only starts, I think I wrote it down, only starts on page 234. This book has 385 pages, so it's a novella-sized romance. Yes, technically, so she has a neighbor who wants her to fake date him to keep his parents off his back because they've been trying to set him up with somebody. Technically, yes, this could be like fake dating romance, but to me, there was no chemistry between them at all. It was not clear to me at all she was going to end up with him. I was still thinking she was going to end up with this Jonah character until page 234. Then to me it was like, oh, okay, I guess the romance is between these two. So yeah, like I said, not a romance. I mean, I liked the book. I gave it 3 stars because once again, it did make me laugh. I was rooting for Delphi. I was like, yeah, girl, you go make your friends and hopefully you can get together with your neighbor. But yeah, no, it didn't feel like a romance to me. The reason it's 3 and not higher is because, I don't know, I just couldn't suspend my disbelief for that much. Like, yes, okay, I had already suspended my disbelief. The fact that she used to be dead and now she has this 10 days to stay alive. But then, I don't know, it was just so unrealistic to me that this girl who has basically been a recluse, who never really talked to people, all of a sudden, within 10 days, has formed this found family around her, and now all of a sudden it's so easy for her to talk to strangers. Like, that is unbelievable to me. Like, I get it that there's this impeding deadline of her actually dying if she doesn't change things. But to me, this was not really character progression. To me, it was just this girl did a complete 180, and I cannot believe, like, you need a little bit of time to try and get out of your shell a little bit. Also, her mom was the most horrible person on earth, and I cannot believe anybody would behave like that, and nothing in this book made it seem like her mom was horrible to her when she was still a child. So I cannot believe a mom would treat her child like that. Once again, this was single point of view. I do think it would have benefited from being dual point of view, but then, like I said, it's just not a romance. I don't understand why this was nominated for the romance category, because it's just not. So in that case, I do understand why it was not dual point of view, because it is Delphi's story. But I just wish it was, like I said, I think dual point of view would have been interesting because we would have gotten to know Cooper a little bit more. He also has dealt with horrible things. I would have liked more of his thoughts. I don't know if he was fighting for her. I don't think he was. And once again, 10 days. Like, these people fell in love in like 3 days, which, I'm sorry, but I mean, I have developed feelings pretty fast in the past, but not in 3 days. So anyway, like I said, it's not bad if you go into it with the right mindset, which is, this is not a romance. It's a fiction story. It's I guess, women's fiction. I don't know if we still use that term, with a romance in it. I did like the found family in the end. Yeah, still 3 stars. I liked it definitely more than the Rom-Commers. Okay, so today is Sunday, November 24th, and I really want to upload this video next week on Sunday, so December 1st. But I still need, so I have a week left, and I still need to read 6 books, which I don't read that fast. I cannot read 6 books in 7.5 days, as much as I wish I could. And I really don't want to postpone this video. So all the other ones I really want to read physically. The only book that I'm really not that interested in is Lies and Weddings by Kevin Kwan. And this is the longest one that is still left. So I decided I'm gonna listen to this one on audiobook. For those of you who followed my channel for a while, you know I'm not an audiobook girly. I tend to have trouble really focusing on audiobooks, but I'm gonna try my hardest on this book because I really want to read every single book in this video and I don't want to DNF anything. So I think audiobook would be good for this one. I do own it physically, so I can flip through it every once in a while. Having 437 pages less to actually physically read is gonna help me a lot. That's my update for now. I don't know which book I'm gonna read next. I guess you'll see that in my next update. I started Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I'm on page 150, and this is just as compulsively readable as any other Abby Jimenez I've read. Let me give you the premise first. This one you follow Justin and Emma, and Justin wrote on like a Reddit type forum that anytime he dates a woman and then breaks up with him, the next person she dates is her soulmate, and that has happened to him multiple times. And then Emma actually responds to him and tells him that she's been having the same problem. Anytime she's dating somebody and anytime they break up, he will find his soulmate in the next person he's dating. So they decide that maybe they can cancel each other's curses out. Maybe if they date and then break up, they'll find their true soulmate. So she's a traveling nurse, so she decides to work where he lives in Minnesota for 6 weeks. So she comes there and they decide to date for a month and then break up, and hopefully their curse will be broken. He, in the meanwhile, is dealing with his mom going to jail and him having to take care of his siblings who are a lot younger than him. And she has this mom who has been abandoning her entire life. In fact, she had to go through the foster care system because her mom was such a flaky person. She has to deal with that because she still really, really loves her mom, even though her like foster sister is done with her mom and hates her. She still sees the good in her mom, but she has like some sort of mental health issues because of everything that happened. PTSD, some mental health issues. And this book, like Abby Jimenez knows how to write good, like truly good characters. Like the hero is such a sweetheart. He's such a good guy, a great guy, a guy I would love to have as my boyfriend. And the heroine is also such a good person. Like there's a scene in here on their first date actually where she sees somebody that she knows is probably has dementia. And the way she took care of that lady, even though she didn't know anything that was going, like she didn't know her at all, was so sweet and such a nice thing to do. I'm really enjoying this book. Although I do have to say, with Abby Jimenez, even though I've given both books I read by her 4 stars, so Yours Truly and Part of Your World, while I was reading it, they gave me 5-star feelings because what I love about this book, I also loved about the other books. The only problem I had with those 2 other books is that I love in my romances when my characters are actually happy and together for a good portion of the book, and that just wasn't the case in those 2 books. Most of that book was spent either, like for example with Yours Truly, most of that book was spent them fake dating, and once they actually got around to dating, the 3rd act breakup happened very quickly, and then you never really got to see them happy and in love. Whereas I did love a lot of other things about those other books. Like I love the characters, I love their romance, and that is everything I love about this book too. I love the characters, I love the romance, I love the side characters. This book seems to be a little bit longer than the other 2 books I read by her. I really hope that we do get a portion of them actually in a relationship and actually happy, because if that's the case, then this is going to be my favorite Abby Jimenez because I'm really enjoying it. I am loving these characters so much, and I'm loving this story. I think Abby Jimenez is such an amazing author. In fact, even though I haven't given her a 5-star yet, I do consider her one of my favorite authors because I fly through her books. She writes such great, amazing characters. Most of her characters have some sort of mental health thing going on, or something with their parents, or something with their exes. I think she does, like her characterization is amazing. And I can definitely see why she's so popular. And like I said, I love her too. So I really hope, like I am really hoping that we get to see them actually happy for a while. I would love that because like I said, everything else I'm really loving about this book. So hopefully, I really am praying for this to be a 5-star. And there's a cute dog in here and he does play a role in this book too. So that is great as well. So far, I'm really loving it. I'm on page 188 now, and they just had their first kiss and I am loving it so much. We just had this scene with Justin and his mom where she was drunk, and it kind of made me happy and also broke my heart at the same time. So I'm just gonna chug along and live my best life reading this book. So I am on page 253 of Just for the Summer. And this might be one of my favorite books I read this year, and definitely my favorite Abby Jimenez. I am in love with Justin. I love him so much. Like he's so cute and adorable, but also sexy in ways. Like I love how he is so attentive, so sweet, such a good guy. But I also love how he's firm sometimes too. So they obviously have this thing where they have to have 4 dates in a month, and then they have to kiss too. And he doesn't want to kiss her because of this curse thing, because he obviously he's starting to like her. He wants her to stay. I love how he's firm in that he's not actually going to kiss her. I don't know. That just makes him so sexy to me. I love how okay, obviously I don't know which angle to use. Anyway, I love how he is with his siblings. He's such a great man and so sweet. Like I am in love with this man. He is so adorable. And I really like her too. This book is so funny. It made me laugh. Like I was reading this on the tram to and from work, and I just had this big grin on my face the entire time. I just love him. I love him so much. And I really am loving this book. I'm flying through it. The difference in this book, I think, for me with the rest of Abby Jimenez's books is that even though, yes, they know that she's leaving by like at the end of summer, although obviously she's not going to leave, I don't think. But they are very clear in that they like each other. And this reminds me a little bit of Caught Up in that way that I don't mind if there's an end date like that. It's going to probably be the 3rd act conflict, but I want my couple to be clear on their feelings. And that was kind of what was missing for me in the part of your world duology. I think in this case, yes, technically they know they're leaving, but these dates feel really real. They feel like a couple. It's just that they have an expiration date, which I don't mind those kinds of stories. I'm just so in love with this book and with this hero. Like, he's definitely probably gonna be one of my book boyfriends this year and maybe of all time. I just love him so much. Like I said, I love how attentive he is. He's so sweet. And I know that Abby Jimenez is funny because, especially in yours truly, there were moments where I laughed out loud a lot throughout that book. So that is not surprising to me, but this book also just makes me chuckle a lot. But yeah, I'm really loving it. Cannot wait to finish it. And honestly, something really horrible has to happen for me to give this anything but 5 stars. So let's hope that I'll love the last 150 pages just as much as I've loved the first 250. So yeah, I guess I'll just update you once I actually finish. Okay, so I think I forgot to say this in my last update. What I also really love about Justin is how honest he is. Like, I told you guys that these two are honest about their feelings, but I love how honest he is, that he likes her, that he loves spending time with her, that he loves the way she smells. I just love an honest man. And he was very honest upfront about his feelings. He wasn't playing any games. I like that so much. Like this, you know, sometimes we read about these bad boys and these morally gray characters that, yes, they're fun to read about, but in no way, shape, or form do I want a man like that in my life. I have no interest nor the patience for toxicity in my life. Justin is one of those heroes that I would be the happiest girl in the world if he was my boyfriend. He's perfect. Absolutely perfect. So I just had to come back and say that because you guys need to know how perfect this man is. So I just finished Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, and I gave this book 5 stars. It's my favorite Abby Jimenez, and it's one of my favorite books I read this year, honestly. I really love this book. This was so beautiful. Like, I fell in love with Justin, like I said. I really loved Emma in this book. I love them both so much, and the third act conflict made all the sense in the world. And I also loved how she got to where she eventually got in this book, who helped her, how she got there, what else, like the fact that she got therapy and that helped her. I really loved seeing that. I do have to say, you can read this without having read any other Abby Jimenez book, honestly, but I do think that reading at least part of your world, but also yours truly, will definitely add to the experience because a lot of characters from that book make an appearance in here. Yeah, I really loved it. I don't know what else I can say about this book that will make you want to read it, but I would highly, highly, highly recommend it. This was so beautiful. I loved every single thing in this book. Like, I tapped the hell out of this, and I actually, while I was on the tram, I read a big chunk that I have not tabbed yet, that I still need to. But I really loved it. Like I said, definitely, if this doesn't make it onto my favorites list, then I don't know what went wrong, because this is 5 stars. If I gave 6 stars, it would be 6 stars. I want to give it 100 stars. It was so beautiful. I am so glad I finally have an Abby Jimenez that I gave 5 stars. Yeah, I flew through it. But I do have to say that, like, I usually fly through her books because they're very compulsively readable for me. But I just really loved it. And if you can, I would highly recommend reading the Q&A because she explains a lot of things in there that retroactively made me understand why I fell in love with this book so much. So yeah, I loved it. I don't know what else I can say. Oh, you know what? I just forgot to mention. One thing I also really, really loved about this book were Justin's siblings. I loved them so much, and I loved how they were flawed too, especially Sarah, that she had her own things going on. I loved their different ages. So there was a small one, a 4-year-old, and then 2 teenagers. I loved that. And I also loved his relationship with his siblings, and I also loved how much Emma grew to love them and how much they grew to love her. I thought that was such a nice addition to this book. It's a twist on the single dad romance. I really loved it. I enjoyed them very much. I've only read 3 books by her. I haven't seen her do kids yet, and I thought she did them perfectly. And especially Chelsea was just the most adorable little girl in the world. I really loved her. So I am about 136 pages into A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. so I read the first 9 chapters. So far, as much as I am loving it, like the writing is exquisite. Like Tia Williams has a beautiful writing style. Like the quotes in here I am highlighting definitely, and I will definitely be rereading parts, like sentences of this book. Right now, it doesn't feel like a romance, and I think at the end of the day, it's not gonna be a traditional romance. Not because I don't know if this is gonna end in an HEA, but also because I'm around 40% of the way through right now, and right around this time is when they finally have like a meaningful interaction, which in traditional romances, that happens way earlier. Anyway, let me go back and tell you what this is about. You follow Ricky Wilde, and she is the youngest daughter of this family, very prominent family, a very successful family, and she's the only one of her 3 sisters that is not successful. And in fact, I really love this quote when I read it in the synopsis, and it's also mentioned in the book. She's the opposite of her famous socialite sisters. Where there are long-stemmed roses, she's a dandelion, an adorable bloom that's actually a weed born to float wherever the wind blows. That is exactly what Ricky Wilde is. And that gives you a snippet of how beautiful the quotes are in this book. So her family owns a funeral parlor, and it's also expected of her to go into the funeral business, but she doesn't want to. So she ends up starting her own flower shop in Harlem. She's able to do that because she meets this older lady who's a widow, and she gives her a chance and rents out like the bottom part of her flat to her, and that's where she starts her flower shop. And there she meets this child actress named Tuesday, and it's basically them 3. And then one day she goes out into a garden taking in the beautiful jasmine flowers when she realizes that the jasmine she's smelling, it's not supposed to flower at the time of year that she's there. And there she meets a handsome, mysterious stranger who, through circumstances, they keep running into each other. And he actually, in one of those meetings, he tells her that she needs to basically stay away from him, and she needs to leave Harlem if she knows what's good for her. It's basically like a warning to her. But then, like I said, they keep running into each other, and eventually, I'm assuming they cannot stay away. First of all, I am in love with this cover. This is such a beautiful, beautiful cover. This, I'm 100% sure, is gonna have a speculative element to it. That is a hard word for me to say, because this takes place in a leap year, and it takes place in this year's leap year. So there's gonna be some magical element to it. I already have a very strong suspicion about what's gonna happen. There is one chapter that takes place in the 1920s, and she keeps referencing the 1920s. The man that she's talking to may or may not be that man whose chapter we read from in the 1920s. Like I said, this does feel like more Ricky's story as opposed to a actual romance. And like I said, if it goes the way I'm thinking it's going, I don't see how this is gonna have an actual HEA. And like I said, usually with romance, the romances I love to read, I like for my couple to have met in the first 10, maybe 20% of the book, not around 40% of the book. And when I say meet, I'm talking about like actual have a conversation, them knowing each other. I am enjoying it while I'm reading it, but it is a slower book for me. I do feel like I find myself slowing down a little bit simply because, like I said, it's such a beautiful writing style. And this is, I don't think this is a book meant to binge your way through, but the writing is gorgeous, like I keep saying, and I am liking all the characters so far. I love Ricky, I love Tuesday, I love Della, who's like the grandmother figure, and I am liking Ezra too. So yeah, those are my thoughts so far. The chapters are pretty long, so that is also like with books with longer chapters, it usually takes me a while to get through them. So I'm here to give you my final thoughts on A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. So I actually finished it 3 days ago, and I kind of wanted to sit with my thoughts a little bit, but I ended up giving this 5 stars. I thought it was a beautiful, beautiful book, and also a beautiful romance. I know I told you in my update that I was debating whether or not this was a romance. I do think it was a romance in the end, but it's not. Like, it's more like literary fiction romance. Even though that is not normally the type of romances that I love to read, I thought this was beautiful. Like, I love it. I love The magical realism part in here, like the whole paranormal bit in here, I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was beautiful. I really love the story, and like I said, I struggled a little bit in the beginning. I thought that part could have been cut down a bit. I wanted them to meet a little bit earlier. There were some things about Ricky and her story before she met Ezra that just was not necessary, and I don't think at the end of the day it needed to be that flushed out at the beginning. It was fine. Like the same plot beats she could have kept in. She could have gone through it a little bit quicker. Like I didn't need all this backstory about her meeting Ollie and her like brief relationship with him. That was, at the end of the day, that was not necessary at all, because he was a vehicle to getting her to meeting Ezra. So yeah, anyway, I would say like the beginning was the weaker part. Like having said all that, it was still like the writing was still beautiful. I feel like either it should have been cut down or she should have filled it in with other scenes, because one of the things that I did love, that I did wish we got more of, is the scenes in the 1920s. I would have loved more of those scenes. So if you were gonna give me interactions and a part of the story that is not part of the actual romance, then I would have preferred the historical fiction side, like the more like the scene set in the 1920s. So yeah, it did take me a while to fall in love with this book, but in the end I definitely did, but it just took me a while. These two definitely felt like soulmates. I truly understood why they fell in love with each other so much. I thought it was just a beautiful romance, and I also love the mix between a contemporary setting but also glimpses of the historical one. I really love that. At the beginning I wasn't really sure about getting different point of views other than the main couple, but like once again I ended up loving that by the end. I have to say, if you really love books like Addie LaRue, but also if you love The 7-Year Slip or Divine Rivals, you might like this book. I don't know, it just reminded me of those books where it's mainly set in a contemporary setting or in like a different genre, but it has hints of magic in it. So I truly think that if you love those books, you're gonna love A Love Song for Ricky Wilde as well. Yeah, I really loved it, and I loved actually reading it around the time of the leap day. That's not really necessary, but it just added to the magic of it all. I would say definitely pick it up. It was 5 stars. I would highly recommend it. If you just want a book that has beautiful quotes, then definitely pick this one up. I thought it was a great new release. Okay, so I started Daydream by Hannah Grace. And before I tell you about it, I just want to show you my new bookmark. Look at it. Listen, seals are my favorite creature, and these are adorable. I already had one that had Arctic foxes that are also very cute, but these are just adorable. Anyway, moving on. Daydream by Hannah Grace is the 3rd book in the Maple Hill series by her. And this is the long-awaited Henry book. So Henry you've seen around, especially in the 1st book. He became friends with Anastasia. Yeah, so he is neurodivergent. So if you read the author's note at the beginning by Hannah, but he's not going to be diagnosed in this book. And it is based on her personal experience. So he tends to procrastinate a lot, even though he is smart and things do come easily to him. Actually studying, and especially studying things that he has no interest in, is difficult for him because he gets lost in the details. Also, like if there's a lot of noise, he also tends to get distracted. And one day, Aurora, who is obviously the heroine from the 2nd book, she takes him to a bookstore, and there he meets Hallie, and she's running a romance book club, and he starts eating her cookies. Literally her cookies, and they start to get talking. They become friends. How, I don't know, but they do. So he finds that he wants to spend more time with her, and she wants to spend time with him too, because her boyfriend recently broke up with her, and she realized that basically, so they were friends first, basically their families are friends, they grew up together, and she doesn't really have friends of her own. All her friends were his friends. So when they broke up, they all dropped her. So she's really clinging on to Henry, and she also made some friends through work. And she kind of notices what he needs because her sister has ADHD. So she's been helping her throughout the year. So she kind of knows what works for him, and it does end up helping him. He's recently become hockey captain ever since Nate from the 1st book left. So he needs to not only have his GPA be to a certain point, but his coach wants him to excel academically. There's a class he's failing because his learning style and the teacher's teaching style don't really mesh well, but he cannot change the class, so she's helping him. And this is supposed to be like a Tudor romance. It's really not. Ugh. I don't know what's wrong with me. Well, I kind of do know what's wrong with me. I don't know if it's these traditional romances back to back. I think I need like a filthy, over-the-top indie book, honestly. And I kind of want like a hate to love. Like, give me a good, sexy, smutty hate to love. So I honestly think after this video is going to be over, one book I really want to read is Garum Park. I think that will satisfy what I need. But also, really, I just don't think these two have any chemistry, really. Like, first of all, I don't, so they're friends, okay? I guess I believe in their friendship, but this is supposed to be a romance, and both of them like each other, and they are doing like the right things. Like, they are going on these fake dates because, oh yeah, that's what I forgot to tell you. So she wants to be an author, so she's entering in this writer competition. She needs to write, but she doesn't really have any inspiration, and she thinks it's because she doesn't really have a life. Like, she lives in her grandmother's apartment with a cat. She didn't really have any friends. Her and her boyfriend didn't really do like a whole lot of interesting stuff. Like, she basically just hung out with him and his friends. So she kind of wants like all these experiences. And he told her, since he doesn't want to take advantage of her, since she's helping him study, he wants to give her these experiences. So they're going on dates. On paper, I should love this, because on paper, it seems like it's like The Deal by Elle Kennedy, like a Tudor thing and fake dating, I guess. But really, these two are just like, okay, like they hang out and it's fine. They go on these dates and it's fine. All their friends assume they're together, and it's just like, I don't know, there's no real tension. And that is sometimes my problem with these friends to lovers romances. Like, there has to be some sort of tension in there, like, or some sort of chemistry. So far, I'm not feeling it, but I do have to say, so far it feels like the tamest of her novels, because in the first and second book, definitely there was more sex on page by this point. So I'm on page 167. So far they haven't kissed. She has some issues with intimacy. She never really wanted, she's still a virgin. She never had no interest in having sex with her ex. It does seem like she may be interested to have sex with Henry. But like I said, I don't know, maybe if they finally kiss, and maybe if they do other things. But on the other hand, like, they have moments where in other books, I have felt the tension. Like, she sat on his lap a couple times. He is constantly touching her, really. And I just feel like I'm reading these two friends just hanging out, and not these potential lovers doing things, I guess. And I like both of them. Like, I like Henry. I think he's cute. I liked him from the first book when he revealed that he has like this emergency kit for women who stay over. I just feel like it's more tell than show. Like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I just feel like I don't know him that well. Like, we're told he's very good with women. We're told he has slept with all these women. And I'm like, but I don't see that. Like, and I don't know if it's relevant at all, but I don't know. I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. I do like Hannah's writing style. Obviously, I'm familiar with it since I already read 2 books in the series. But so far, I for sure prefer Wildfire. Wildfire was one of my favorite books last year, and I also prefer Icebreaker over this one. But like I said, I like her writing style, so I am reading this book a little bit faster. I do have to say, I bought the ebook of this as well, even though it was a pretty expensive ebook. But especially since it's getting darker earlier, my eyes just want like a computer screen to read from. So that's what I'm doing right now. So my goal is actually to finish it tonight. I don't think I will, because I'm not even halfway through yet. But for sure, I'll finish it tomorrow. And then I don't know which book I'm starting, but tomorrow I'm going to my mom in Rotterdam after work, which means I have about an hour-and-a-half commute. And usually I tend to read a little bit more when I'm at my parents'. So I do think I can finish this. I do for sure think I can finish this tomorrow and get maybe halfway through another book. Tomorrow, the top 10 is getting announced, so I'm interested to see that. And also, I started Lies and Weddings. Let me actually grab that book. So, Lies and Weddings. And actually, this is the other bookmark that I already owned. Look at the little foxes. They're so adorable. So, these are from Waterstones, actually. So, if you're ever in Waterstones, I would totally recommend these bookmarks. So, I told you I was going to start the audiobook, and I did. But I'm not really jiving. I'm not really like, I don't know, the audiobook narrator is kind of annoying me. Like, she talks in this like breathy voice and it's annoying me. And already like these people are, I don't like reading about rich people. I genuinely don't. And this to me screams not a romance, not a romance. Like, alert, alert, not a romance. So I didn't want to DNF books, and I'm not DNFing it yet since I'm just like on page 25 or something. So I am gonna, since it's just an audiobook, I'm gonna try and listen to it, but like I'm not really compelled to go out of my way to listen to it. So I'm listening to it whenever I'm like out and about and cannot physically read or watch YouTube videos or do something else. We'll see if I can get used to this audiobook narrator's voice, because I'm not reading it physically. I just refuse to. I cannot, like, I physically cannot, since there's only like 7 days left and I still need to read way more books. So we'll see. Okay, so it's like 6:30 in the morning and I have to film this before I go to work, because after work I'm going to my mom's house, like I said. So I'm not bringing my big camera with me, so I have to do it before work. So let's do a quick reaction to the top 10. So let's screen record. Let's go to Goodreads and the Choice Awards. Okay, romance. The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. Apparently this series is very popular. And Ellie Hazelwood. I did not expect Bride to make it in the top 10, but I guess I was wrong, okay. Play Along. Makes sense. Definitely the right move. Made it pretty far in the Goodreads Choice Awards last year. Wild Love. So last year Powerless didn't make it, but she had like 3 releases in 2024 plus. Obviously she's gotten more popular with the years. So Wild Love, it's good to see that on here. This summer will be different, makes sense, because even though last year she didn't make it in the top 10, this book is more popular. And she is a popular author. I really need to wash my hair. I'm gonna do that tonight. Paradise Problem. Yeah, makes sense. I don't know if they made it in the top 10 last year, but this makes sense. Anna Huang, of course. This does not surprise me at all. Just for the Summer, of course. I voted for this one. And honestly, out of all of them, I don't know. We'll talk about my vote later. Leather and Lark makes sense. It's a very popular series, this one. And Funny Story. Okay, so let's see. The only one, so I only need to read 2 technically for the top 10, which is the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore and Leather and Lark. So I don't know when I'm gonna read those. I think Cinnamon Bun Bookstore was gonna be one of the last books I was gonna be reading. So we'll see if I'm still gonna be doing that. My goal is still to read the top 20, but we're getting there in terms of time. We'll see. Let me actually see which books did not make it. So obviously Not in Love, which makes sense. So both the Tia Williams and the Kennedy Ryan didn't make it, but honestly that does not really surprise me. They didn't have, as much as I don't want to see that, they didn't have a lot of ratings. Same with The Pairing. Like I said, Not in Love didn't make it. Lies and Weddings, A Love of My Afterlife, How to End a Love Story. Daydream didn't make it. That is surprising. I'm currently reading that one. The Rom-Commers didn't make it. Swift and Saddle didn't make it. I'm missing like 2 books that I didn't see yet. So all the books that didn't make it, let me do that again. Swift and Saddled, This Could Be Us. The Rom-Commers, Daydream, How to End a Love Story, The Love of My Afterlife, The Pairing, Not in Love, Lies and Weddings, A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. I have to tell you, there is a high probability I'm going to be DNFing Lies and Weddings, but we'll see when I have to make that final decision. The other ones, I still have faith that I can read them, but yeah, you'll see me when I do my final update for Daydream, which I'm still surprised didn't make it in the top 10. But then again, I'm kind of lukewarm on that book too, so maybe... Although I did read a little, like, some of the Goodreads reviews, and it doesn't have that bad of an average rating. Anyway, nobody compares to Russ and Rory in my opinion. So yeah, you'll see me when I'm at my parents' house, I guess. Okay, so I finished Daydream today, actually, I gave it 2.5 stars. Listen, I truly don't know what's happening here. Part of me thinks it might be me. It's either that or this year's selection of new releases is not as good as last year's. At the end of the vlog, I will do like average rating comparison. I just feel like I had more 5 stars last year, but then last year I did focus solely on the top 10, whereas now obviously I'm reading the top 20. So I don't know, I think both are to blame, but I do have genuine gripes with this book. Where do I start? Okay. I felt like these two had no chemistry. I felt there were no stakes at all in this book. There was not even an ounce of angst in this book. There was no spark between them. I didn't give a fuck at the end of the day. And I think, so I do have to say, okay, so one of the biggest problems I have with this series is that there's too many side characters that are, most of them are not well developed, and I just get lost in the side characters. And I was fine with it in Wildfire because that was the first book I read in that series, and all my problems I had in that book, I just reasoned that, okay, maybe I'm lost because I didn't read the first book, so it's okay that I'm lost because all the side characters were introduced in the first book. This book I'm reading, already having read the first two and knowing that those side characters were not well developed. So in that case, I cannot give this book a pass. But honestly, like I said, that is not my biggest problem with this book. I think I've come to realize that books where the characters meet each other in the book and it's not a hate to love, those I tend to struggle with a little bit. Like the author really, really needs to put in work for me to believe in their romance, I guess. I don't know, like these two were fine and then they went on these dates. I just felt like she put in gimmicks in this book and it didn't really play well. Like, okay, so we need to fake date. Okay, so they went on a couple fake dates and it was fine. Like they like each other and all their friends are happy they are together. It's just like there's no real stakes, no real tension, nothing. Like they know they like each other and it's fine. And then there's this thing where she's like, I don't want to put a label on it because the last time my best friend became my boyfriend, everything went to shit. Okay, so that was supposed to be tension-filled, yet the one and only time he asks her to be his girlfriend, she immediately says yes. So then why did we have that gimmick? You know what I mean? So I feel like there are things put in here that are supposed to be a bigger deal, but they don't turn out to be a big deal in the end. You know what I mean? Also, a thing that kept bothering me, especially towards the end, was Henry. I don't want to say it because obviously this is Own Voices. She wrote Henry based on her own neurodivergence, except, okay, I know, and this is me having a background in psychology. I have a master's in psychology, in fact, so it's not like I'm talking bullshit and I don't know. I know neurodivergence is harder to diagnose for women than it is for men. Henry displayed most of the usual signs of ADHD. At least typical signs of a type of neurodivergence. This is not realistic to me. He has moms who care about him deeply and who are doctors. At least one of them is a doctor. You cannot convince me that he went his entire life never being diagnosed with some sort of neurodivergence by his moms who care about him. He's an only child, and it's clear that these are things he's been struggling with his entire life. Like I said, he's never been diagnosed. He had nobody help him with the things he's struggling with. And like I said, they're typical things. The fact that he cannot concentrate, the fact that sometimes things get too much for him, sometimes noises get too much for him. And I would assume that those things would be worse as a child when he cannot really articulate or set his own boundaries, you know what I mean? You cannot convince me, like, I'm sorry, it was so unrealistic that his mom, who's an actual doctor, would not do anything about it. Yet it takes Hallie, the second time meeting him, to figure out what is going on and to immediately help him and find things that work for him. Like that, to me, the math ain't mathing. The math ain't mathing. And then on top of that, him being a man. And yeah, I know that sucks. But it has been proven that women mask things easily. And he was not masking at all. So yeah, no, like that is just, it would have made way more sense had she made Hallie the one that was inspired by her own neurodivergence. But to me, this really made no sense. Like, she could have changed his parents in a way. Like, if he had more siblings, or if he or his moms, none of them were doctors, maybe in that case it would have been more believable. But I don't know, like I said, you just cannot convince me that Hallie figures it out right away and finds things that work for him, yet his moms, who've known him in his entire life, never tried any of that. Like I said, and maybe it's nitpicky, and maybe I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about because I'm not neurodivergent, but it is something I can speak on given my background. So it makes no sense to me. And the way he's written and the way his family is written, it really makes no sense. And the way that it was portrayed, I'm not talking about the way his like symptoms, I guess, were portrayed, because I 100% believe that that is an authentic experience, considering she based him off her own experience, if you read the letter in the beginning of the book. But Hannah figuring it out right away, and right away finding things that help him, yet his mom, who's an actual doctor, did not do a thing for 20 years. I cannot really believe that. Anyway, I know I went on a tangent. My main gripes with this book was the romance. It just, to me, was not believable. I didn't care. It was boring. It was way too long too. And yes, I know the other books were long as well, but at least those books had stakes, had tension, had a good romance. I obviously did like seeing the other characters, but it was not enough to save this book for me. And I think I said it in an earlier clip, if you want a similar type of premise but written better, I would say read The Deal, because you have the fake dating thing, plus you have the tutoring thing, because the tutoring thing here was also not really that exciting. And you guys know I love a athlete tutor storyline, considering Nayli from One Tree Hill is my favorite couples of all time. So yeah, I'm sorry to say, maybe I'm too harsh, but 2.5. I'm sorry. And since I'm on a roll, I'm deciding to DNF Lies and Weddings. I got to page 70 and I have to stop because the audiobook narrator, it's not necessarily her voice when she speaks normally. It's when she, like most of the voices she does are so annoying. It's like nails on a chalkboard to me. And I really have no interest in this book. Like the 70 pages I read, I was annoyed at least 100 times. I don't care about these rich people and their rich problems. I don't give a fuck. And I mean, if you've read it, let me know if it's a romance, because but honestly, you cannot even convince me that it's a romance. Like the whole setup reads like a mystery and not a romance. So yeah, no. I'm gonna DNF it, and that's fine. I actually DNF'd the book last year around the same, and I think I also read like 60 pages or something, so I'm sorry, but I cannot do it. It's Wednesday, and I still need to read 4 books. So, and I'm not gonna read this physically, considering it's one of the longest ones, and I don't have time, and I don't want to. So I'm gonna just DNF it. Moving on to the summer. This summer will be different. So this is about Lucy and her best friend comes from this island in Canada, Prince Edward Island. And so her best friend is Bridget. And Bridget is supposed to get married, but a week, I believe, before her wedding, she goes off and goes to Edward Island and asks Lucy to come along. So Lucy comes with, but Lucy has been keeping a secret from Bridget for 5 years, which is that every summer she's on Prince Edward Island, she ends up hooking up with Bridget's younger brother, Felix. So of course, this year, there's a mystery between what is going on with Bridget, because Bridget is not telling why she left a week before her wedding. And obviously, there's still sparks between Felix and Lucy. You get chapters from the present, and you get chapters from those 5 summers past. So far, I'm on page 149, and so far I am enjoying it more than Meet Me at the Lake, but that was not a difficult task. The big reason why I prefer this one is because that book, the flashbacks were all of a single night that was this supposed magical night that I didn't buy. This, you get flashbacks from several summers, so I do believe them when they say that they have been pining for each other because it's more than just a day. It is a couple summers. Having said all that, I don't think that Carly Fortune is for me because I do feel like she focuses too much on physical aspects, like the way people look, and not as much on their personalities, because I don't know why Lucy likes Felix, except for the fact that he's hot. And I don't know why Felix likes Lucy, except for the fact that she's hot. And that was one of the big issues I had with Meet Me at the Lake, that we never really focused on why they like each other, except for the fact that they're attracted to each other. But that to me does not a romance make. I do have to say, what's a downside for this book is that I am slumping big time. But it also says something about the book that usually reading is I just prefer reading over doing other things. So the fact that I'm not prioritizing reading, in fact, I haven't been reading for the last couple of days, it says a lot. I do have to say I started this on audio, and I might actually have to finish it on audio too, because this week is pretty busy. So the only way I can read, at least for today, I really want to finish it today, but I also have to really clean my house. I think I'm just gonna listen to it while cleaning. Also, one thing that, at least in the last book and in this book, that Carly Fortune does that I don't like is when there's this big mystery going on. Well, first of all, so obviously Bridget is gone. We don't know why. I don't like that in romances. Like, for example, Book Lovers did the same thing where the main character's sister wanted to go to this small town and she wasn't saying why. And then once it was finally revealed, it was just lackluster. I don't think what's going to be revealed here is going to be an interesting thing. So I just don't like that. They're supposed to be best friends. I don't know why she's keeping the secret from her friend. And she did something similar in Meet Me at the Lake, where it had more to do with our main character, where the mystery was coming from. It was lackluster. I just didn't care about this mystery, and it was a big plot in the book. Same thing is going on here. And at first, I really thought, like, what is the big deal? Because Bridget had, like, these 3 rules for her friend when she visited Prince Edward Island. And the third one was, don't fall in love with my brother. And at the beginning of the book, I was, like, confused, like, why is that? It's, like, a childish rule. But it was revealed why, and I can't understand why Bridget wouldn't want Lucy to date her brother. So like I said, I'm about halfway through, and I really wanna finish it today, so hopefully I can. And I guess I'll just update you once I finish it. This is not gonna be a 5-star for me, but hopefully it will be 4 stars, because like I said, the last book was a 1 star, so I'm sure it's gonna get at least 2 points higher than the first book. So I just finished This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. Finally. And the reason I say finally is because I've been reading this book for a very, very long time. Let me actually see when I started it. So right now it's June 26th, and I actually started it on June 7th, and I started listening to it. And I wasn't really getting that far, even though I did kind of enjoy the audiobook. And then I actually started reading it on June 18th. So even though this book is not that long, it's only 330 pages, and it took me like at least over 2 weeks to finish it. And the reason being is that I kept putting it down. I just really didn't care that much about this book. So I don't want to be too harsh, because to be honest, if I compare this to Meet Me at the Lake, the Meet Me at the Lake was objectively bad. Like, I just did not like that book, and I would not recommend it to anybody. This book, I honestly would recommend to a lot of people. I don't think it's that bad. I just think that Carly Fortune and me just don't get along. Like, I don't like her books. It's her writing style I don't mesh with. This book was bland. Okay, the characters were bland, but I can see, like, I say that even though I enjoyed Felix in this book. Like, I definitely could see why Lucy would fall in love with him. So I think this is definitely a me problem and not the book's problem, although the way Carly writes is just not my favorite. I don't think I'll ever really love a book by her. So I think I'm gonna give this book 2.5 stars. Okay, some of the things I just don't like about her writing style, and it was evident in this book as well. She writes these supposed flowery things that I just don't find flowery. I just find it cringe. Also, this book is a lot of fade to black, which is fine. Honestly, it's fine. Except these characters, and it was the same for the characters in Meet Me at the Lake, the characters focus a lot on sex and on the physical relationship. So then when you finally do get it, for it to fade to black, it just doesn't add up. And also, I think I told you this in my update, it wasn't until like the very last of this book where I found out why they actually liked each other except for the physical things. She constantly emphasizes how attractive these two are, as opposed to really getting to know them. I just didn't feel like I knew these people. Also, Carly Fortune has a problem with side characters. I feel like a lot of her side characters just feel like cardboard cutouts. They don't feel like real characters to me. The only one that felt sort of real was Bridget, but I felt like Miles was like not an actual character. I felt like Felix's parents were not real characters. Lucy's aunt was not a real character. So I just, like I said, it's just the writing style that I don't mesh with. There were actually days where I was not reading because I just wasn't vibing with this book. I do have to say the European Cup is on, and that is also monopolizing my time. I'm also dating somebody, and he's also kind of taking my time. But I feel like if the book was good, I would still prioritize it, because there were times where I could have read and instead I chose to do other things. And even like with football, I can 100% read while watching the game. Like, that is not a problem for me. It was definitely the book. And I do have to say, it was definitely me with the book. It's just, I think, so I tried 2 of her books, and this one is objectively better, but I don't think her books are for me. And I think maybe I'll stop reading them, but we'll see, because she is very popular, and I'm pretty sure she's going to show up on a lot of Goodreads Choice Award things and like Goodreads related videos that I want to do. So we'll see. But for now, this just was not for me. 2.5 stars. I just did not enjoy it. Moving on to The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. So I'm on page 107. And this book, you follow Kit and Theo. They broke up 4 years ago. So they used to be childhood best friends, and then eventually they became more. And then, so it's not really explained, but they were supposed to go on this European food and wine tour, and something happened and they broke up, and they never spoke to each other since. But their ticket got refunded, and they had to, well, not refunded, they got a voucher. They got like 48 months or something to use that voucher. And now both of them decided a month before the expiration date of the voucher to take that same trip. So they meet each other in the bus, and both of them are very surprised. He went to a pastry school in Paris, and she became a sommelier. Their dream was actually to open like a little restaurant together, but of course that never happened. And basically this story is told in an interesting way, because first of all, it's told, it doesn't have, well, it has chapters, and every chapter is basically a different city in their tour. So can you see that? That is basically their tour. So basically the tour goes through France, Spain, and Italy. So basically you see a chapter in each of those cities. And it's also told interestingly, where the first half of the book, you only get Theo's point of view, and the second half of the book, you only get Kit's point of view. So far, I've only read Theo's side of the story, and I have no idea of Kit's inner thoughts. So I'm interested to see what I think of that once I finish the book. Basically, they have this deal to kind of try to be as civil as possible, but they make a bet of who can have the highest body count by the end of the trip, meaning who can fuck the most people. So far, that is not bothering me, except for the fact that I think it will by the end. I feel like these people, these Europeans are being described in ways that I kind of take issue with. So far, like I said, it's not bothering me too much, because we've only... Okay, so they both had sex with people in Paris, but they didn't have that bet yet. It started in Bordeaux. One of them already slept with somebody, and now in the second city, they are now meeting the girl they both wanna fuck, I guess. So we'll see. Oh yeah, and that's also a thing that's bothering me. I don't know, I just feel like I just cannot suspend my disbelief. Okay, so he's described as Timothée Chalamet, which I get that is a lot of people find him hot, but he's also, like, not everybody finds him hot. So that's also like a particular type you have to like. And she's described as androgynous, which once again, I'm sure a lot of people will find that hot, but not everybody. Yet they constantly will find like the hottest person in a particular place, and coincidentally that person will not only be interested in her, but also in him. What are the odds? is my thing. But anyway, I do like, so he's a pastry chef, and there was this whole scene in Paris where they went to like all the local, like the best pastry places, the way the food was described and the way the wine is described in this book. And I do like going on their little European tour. I just prefer if we focus more on like the actual food and wine tour and not about them getting in the pants of these locals, I guess is my point. Especially since this is a romance. I tend to never really enjoy romances where most of the time the couple is having sex with other people. I don't give a fuck. That is not a romance to me. So we'll see. If it doesn't last too long, I guess I would be fine with it. There was another thing I wanted to say. Oh yeah, one thing is, so they, on their food and wine tour, they go to like these Michelin star restaurants. They eat caviar. They drink like $250 bottles of champagne wine. How expensive is this tour? Like, I'm like in my brain trying to figure out how much it is. It might be 10,000 euros. Like the way, like the places they go, the food they eat. Anyway, I am interested to get his point of view. So I guess we'll get that around page 200. Yeah. So I am interested to see his side of the story, because from her point of the story, the way they broke up was very dickish. So I have started listening to this audiobook a little bit. Mainly, I'm gonna be reading it mostly with my eyeballs, but once I'm doing other things, like I have to clean a little bit, I will be listening to the audiobook for this one. Yeah, those are my updates. So I finished the pairing this morning and I thought this was very enjoyable. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I have to say, so I really loved the descriptions of the cities they visited, and I really loved all the food descriptions, wine descriptions. One thing that did bother me though was, I think I talked about it in my first update, but I felt like the people they interacted with, there were some big stereotypes woven in there that sometimes bothered me, not all the time though. I think I already mentioned it, but I cannot suspend my disbelief that everybody these two came in contact with wanted to fuck them desperately. Like, I'm sorry, you two are probably not that good looking. Even like the most good looking person on earth, not everybody they interact with will want to fuck them. Like, that is just, I don't think that is a thing. I'm sorry. Also, I didn't mention, because it wasn't mentioned up to the point where I was when I updated you, but Theo is actually non-binary. So the first half of the book is from their point of view. And I was debating a little bit, but since it was not actually stated, I didn't talk about it in my update. And then when we were in Kit's point of view, they told him that they were non-binary. So I told you guys that I didn't know what I was gonna think about the switching point of views halfway through. On the one hand, I liked it because I like when you only get one perspective, and then once you finally get the other one and realize they've been pining, I always tend to like that. I guess when we were in Theo's point of view, I didn't mind so much that we didn't have Kit's point of view yet, but when we were finally in Kit's point of view, it was bothering me a little bit that we didn't get Theo's point of view back. Because I would have liked to get their point of view too. So I guess a part of me just wishes that it was maybe like the first half, I don't know. Like, there were some scenes where I just wish we'd gotten their point of view too. So that's like but that's not a big gripe. Like, at the end of the day, it was fine that the point of view was structured the way it was. I'm glad we got Kit's point of view. And I guess it's a good thing that I read this one right after Daydream, because this did all the things that were bothering me about Daydream. Like, this did have angst. I felt like these two did have a genuine connection, a genuine spark, I guess. And it helps that there was a pre-existing relationship beforehand. Like, these two have known each other their entire lives. So they became friends first. Obviously a second chance romance. So they also had a relationship first. So that obviously helps with the characterization and the relationship development. I acknowledge that. So yeah, I did enjoy this book. Yes, this is obviously a book about Europe and Europeans written from an American point of view. So yes, they are ripe with stereotypes. I was flying through it. I did enjoy it. I was wondering, okay, how are they going to make it work? Because one lives in Paris and the other one lives in the US or in California. Yes, I don't think this is going to be for everybody though, because like the hookup competition and everything, I get that is not going to be everybody's cup of tea. So I would say read some reviews before getting into it, because these are things that don't bother me, but from the reviews I've read, they could bother others. So yeah, I do think if you're American or not European, like the whole stereotyping thing might not bother you as much. Oh yeah, I do have to say, so with this book, I started listening to the audiobook as well to get me through this book faster. So basically I was listening to the audiobook as while reading it at the same time. That just made me focus on the book and fly through it. And that also helped me in listening to the audiobook when I wasn't able to physically read. So therefore even though this is a pretty long book, I feel like I've gotten through it faster while listening to the audiobook at the same time. I'm gonna be doing that for the rest of the books in this vlog because I have to finish more books than I usually do in the same amount of time. I'm currently reading This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. I'm on page 182. I cannot find a good way to hold my phone. Let me do this. Okay. Once again, excuse the mess. Like my life messy. Okay, so This Could Be Us follows Soledad. I don't know how to pronounce that. And Josiah. Josiah, right? Or Judah. I think Josiah was the hero in the first book. Anyway, I've not read the first book. This is my first full-length Kennedy Ryan. Soledad is married to this man who is, from the beginning, it's obvious to the reader that he's 100% cheating on her. And then she finds out that he has been embezzling. And the person who discovered his criminal activity is Judah. So her husband hates Judah, and therefore one of her daughters also doesn't like him. But once she finds out what her husband did and how much he betrayed her, she helps Judah and the company he embezzled money from and the FBI to give them information about her husband. And that is all part one. And while she's still married to her husband, she actually meets Judah, and they already have a big attraction to each other, but obviously nothing happens because she's still married and she doesn't know what her husband did yet. Then fast forward 8 months, she's divorced her husband, and now she's a social media influencer because she needs a way to make money, but she still wants to be there for her daughters. I don't know why she doesn't want a different full-time job. I'm pretty sure it's because this is her passion. She loves cooking, cleaning, stuff like that. So her friends help her. One of her friends is a social media influencer manager. They convince her to do that as a profession, to become an influencer. So she does. It's difficult, but she's managing. Judah, in the meantime, he is still crushing on her, and he actually follows her on social media. He wants to take her out, but she wants to self-date. She wants to date herself. She wants to love herself because she's been with her husband 20 years and she realizes that he was a narcissist, and she just wants to love herself first before she's willing to date somebody else. Also, I forgot to mention Judah has 2 autistic sons. They're twins. So that is also a big part of his life. His life revolves around his sons. So he has an ex-wife, but they are they're best friends. They are very amicable and they need each other to raise Adam and Aaron, which I love those 2 names. If I ever have sons, I think those 2 are very high up on my list of names I like for boys. Okay, so I actually just watched Jen's weekly wrap-up, and she calls this a woman's fiction, and I am inclined to agree. So far, I've never read a full-length Kennedy Ryan romance, so I cannot compare it to anything, not like she did, but this does definitely feel women's fiction to me. It's obviously Soledad's story. It's obviously her trying to get her life back together after her husband betrayed her in the worst ways. And Josiah, I keep calling him Josiah. Judah really does seem to have his life in order. Not that she doesn't, but she needs to figure out her new identity, but also she is struggling financially and she is in a bind. Is she going to change her life and her daughter's life, or try to make as much money as she can so their lives can stay the same? I am loving this writing though. Kennedy Ryan is beautiful, has some beautiful lines, and I knew this because I heard so many good things about her stories. So far, I am enjoying it. I don't know what the rating will be, so I guess we'll see. Like I said, so far, I am liking it. The chapters are short, which means I fly through it. But so far, I don't have my thoughts fully solidified yet. So I guess you'll just have to wait for me to finish it for my final updates. I am liking her friends, though. I know Yasmin has the first book, and I am interested to read that. Obviously, I started the series. I will read the first book. And then Hendrix will have a book in 2025. So there's still a while there. Yeah, I actually like the discussion of I keep calling him Josiah, Judah. I really like the discussion Judah has with the reader, because obviously his sons are autistic and they're Black as well. So what he did to ensure that law enforcement and firemen know his son, so that once there is an emergency, they know that they're not a threat. This sucks, and it's sad that that is life, but it is, so you have to adjust to that. I also, the discussion of him, one of his sons, he knows that he's probably, there's a high probability that he has to take care of his son for the rest of his life, and not just his life, his son's life. Like, I like how that is thought about. I love that. And it's Kennedy Ryan, actually, the author's note, I do suggest you read that before you start, because she actually has a son on the autism spectrum. So I think it's clear when you read it that this is personal to her, and that these probably are things that she has had to think about. So I always love that when authors put something so personal in the story, because it makes me connect to it as a reader, because it does feel like it comes from a genuine place. So I just finished This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. And unfortunately, it's a 3.5 stars for me. It would have been 3 stars if it wasn't for the writing style, because she is an amazing author. Her quotes are beautiful, and I can definitely see myself giving her other books 5 stars. This just was not for me. I am primarily a romance reader. I love romance. I love romance so much. And what I'm not is a women's fiction reader. It's just not really my type of genre. And this is 100% a women's fiction. You cannot convince me otherwise. This was 100% Soul's story. And even though Adam did have his own point of views, first of all, they were less than hers, which normally I wouldn't mind. But in this case, I don't know, even this whole book revolved around her. Like, her chapters revolved around her, and his chapters revolved around her too. And nowhere in there was there anything about him. Like, he always had to acquiesce to her, which makes sense because it's obviously her story, but that made this just not, like, it didn't make the romance that believable. To me, this was just lust-based. Like, they were very, very hot together, but every time they were together, it was mainly them having sex or them talking about her and what she needs to do to accomplish what she wants to do. There were never really scenes of them truly getting to know each other. I'm sure they did, but it was off-page, which sucks because I want to see that. I'm the type of reader that, no, yes, obviously you guys know I love smutty scenes, but if I'm reading a romance, I want to believe in their romance. I want to be there with them, not just in the bedroom, but also outside of it when they get to know each other. And I didn't really feel like that happened in here. Like, even, and this is not a spoiler, but once they do finally get together, the quote at the end of that chapter perfectly describes what I'm talking about. So this is in his point of view. It paints a goofy grin on my face. I know it does. I can feel how ridiculously happy it makes me appear, but I can't hold it back. And she says, I've never seen you look like this. And then he says, you've made me happy. You make me happy. In other words, they have been around each other for a year at that point, yet she's never seen him happy, I guess. Like, it was always lust, like I said, or him holding himself back for her. He obviously wanted to be with her, and she basically kept using him for sex, which, I mean, I know that is par for the course in usual romances where the man is like the fuckboy, which I'm not calling her that. Obviously, she had other priorities in her life, as she should. But yeah, sometimes we don't like those heroes. And in this case, I felt like she didn't treat him right, which, case in point, apparently she's never seen him happy, even though they have been having sex together. Like, I'm not saying she's a bad person, because obviously she's not. She's been through something horrific and she's just trying to figure her shit out again. But that is just not the type of books that I want to read. I did like them individually, especially Judah. I really, like, he was so swoony, but I just wish this was a little bit more balanced. And I'm not saying that it needed to be 50-50, but at least like 70-30. Like, this was like 90%. Like, okay, maybe not, but like 85% just about her, Whereas he had an interesting storyline. Like, it wasn't just about the romance. Like, I just wanted more of him being a dad, taking care of his two sons. We did get some of that, but I would have liked a little bit more balance. At the end of the day, 3.5, mainly because I didn't really believe in their romance and it's just not my type of genre. I'm not writing Kennedy Ryan off by any means. I know like a bunch of her books are very high up on my TBRs. I would say if you like women's fiction, then definitely pick it up because it is a good book. I can acknowledge that. It's just not for me, and that is fine. Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I'm on page 133, and this book you follow Rue and Eli, and Rue works for this biotech company called Klein. So basically in her past, she grew up very, very poor and she's very food insecure, and it's still a part of her life, basically. The fact that even though she can afford food, she's still in the back of her mind thinks that there's not enough food. She went to college and her research consists of finding ways to make produce last longer. But her company is in the midst of a hostile takeover. One of the co-founders is Eli, and Eli and Rue actually met the day before they met again in the workplace because they met up for this casual hookup, but nothing happened because they got interrupted. And now they're on opposite sides of this takeover. Eventually, this turns into like a co-workers with benefits situation. Where I'm at now, they've had one sex scene. Right now, she's like, it's just one, it was just that one night, but he obviously wants more. And I believe it like the synopsis does say that they're gonna be sleeping together until one of them wins. So far, I'm not really loving it. So for those of you who don't know, Ali Hazelwood is one of my favorite authors. I've read 3 books by her, given them all 5 stars. So Love Theoretically, The Love Hypothesis, and Bride. So this is different from her other books because this is a erotic romance. Well, so far, obviously, right where I'm at now, I'm not really enjoying it. And I think the reason is that that is not really Ali's writing style. Like, she really shines with quiet moments, with the romantic scenes, the pining heroes that have been pining for a while, and not really, like, I've never read Ali Hazelwood for her sex scenes. She's not an erotic romance author to me. And right now, I'm just, first of all, Eli, even though they've met like 4 days ago, like from the very beginning, he was a simp for her. He was like willing to almost lay down his life for her. He constantly kept having these inner monologues of, I'll just do anything she wants me to do. Like, even if she like spits on me, I would be fine with it, basically. And I don't understand why. Like, it's never explained to me why he's so intrigued by her. Like, I don't get it. Even though I get his point of view and her point of view, usually with Ali Hazelwood, at least the books that I've read, you only get the female's point of view. So this book is different, that we get both characters' point of views. And I just don't get why Eli is so intrigued by her, except for the fact that he finds her attractive. But that is not it for him, because he keeps talking about other things other than her looks, and the fact that he is very intrigued by her and would do anything for her. Like, if it was just the looks, then surely it would just be sex and that's it. Also, and I hate to say this, but I'm not really vibing with Rue. I don't really find her that likable. Well, first of all, it's not that I don't find her likable, it's that I don't know her. I feel like I know Eli way more than I know her. And maybe that's part of her character, the fact that she keeps everybody at surface level, but that's not really true either, because she does say that she may not have a lot of friends and she does keep everybody else at arm's length. She would do anything and everything for the people she loves. Also, this book feels like a regurgitation of some of her other books in her STEM novels. I see the conflict coming from a mile away because I feel like it's very similar to her other 2 books, especially Love Theoretically. I don't like that either. I feel like it is pretty predictable in that way. But having said all that, I do enjoy her writing style and I do want to finish it. The plan is to finish it today, and actually it's the European Cup, so football/soccer for the American viewers, and the Netherlands is actually playing, so I am watching that too. So yeah, so far I'm not really enjoying it. So far it feels like it's gonna be between a 3 and a 4, but we'll see. Obviously I'm not even halfway through yet, so I guess we'll see. I am intrigued to see what else she's gonna do in like the erotic romance side. Maybe I'll take back my words and say that I did love her erotic romance, but we'll see. Okay, so I have some thoughts because I'm still not really enjoying this book too much. I honestly think it's gonna be a 3-star. Mainly, I feel like this book is too imbalanced. Like he is constantly from the very beginning capitulating to her, doing whatever she wants. Like, if she asked him, lay on the ground and I'll walk all over you, he would be like, yes, please. But then on the other hand, he's like supposed to be dominant at sex, which we're just getting that scene because I'm on chapter 22, which means it's even worse that he constantly keeps capitulating to her because apparently he's very dominant in bed, yet he's constantly taking the submissive role and doing that over and over and over again. I understood that in their first meeting. She's obviously a woman and she's also very safety conscious, so he literally has to beg her to drive her home, and then he literally has to give her all his information. Like, he actually has to almost give her his social security number just for her to get in his car so that he can drive her home. Even though she even says, I might be the serial killer in this scenario, which, yes, that the chance of that happening is very small, but it has happened in the past, obviously. That is unlikely, but that perfectly describes their relationship. Like, he's constantly giving, and she never gives anything. Like, even now so she said very clearly that she doesn't want to have any penetrative sex, and now she is willing to try it, but then she has to give caveats, don't mind me if I sleep during it, don't mind me if I'm not enjoying it, stuff like that. It's like, give the guy a chance. Apparently this is the best sex you've ever had. Like, oh my god. Anyway, moving on. So having said all that, I get that he was constantly giving in their first meeting, even though that is weird because if they hadn't been interrupted, they would have literally had sex in a closed off space. Anyway, and I get it, he's driving her home when they have, like, the whole reason why they met up at a hotel is so that he wouldn't know where she lived. I get all that. That is not really the problem I have. It's everything after that. It kept happening, and he was very grateful for it when I'm like, what exactly are you grateful for? Like, yes, this was great sex, but I mean, I'm sure you could have that with anybody. Like, I truly don't see what is so special about her because Allie never put in the time to convince me or to tell me why she was so special. And not that she did it the other way around, because I also don't really know what's so special about Eli, except Rue is not that obsessed with him the way he is obsessed with her. I don't really like that kind of imbalance in romances. Like, there has to be a give and take. Like, even in dark romances where sometimes the heroes take and take and take in the beginning, usually there's still a balance there, like whether that be through giving multiple orgasms or I don't know. And maybe this is some sort of like ingrained toxic masculinity where I'm fine if the guy does it, but not so fine if the woman does it, maybe. But I don't think so, honestly, because even if I read a romance where the guy is constantly taking and not really giving anything in return, then I still don't like that. And maybe, like I said, I'm only 57% of the way through, so obviously that balance can occur. But for now, it feels very imbalanced to me. They're constantly doing things on her terms, and for her to give an inch, he literally has to almost beg for it. And I don't like that. Especially since they both say that they only want things physical. Well, then at least have the physical things be balanced. And so far, it just doesn't feel that way. And another thing that's bothering me is that, okay, so obviously they want to take over this company for a specific reason. I already probably know what it is, but throughout this book, there have been multiple instances where mostly Eli, but also other people are almost telling her what that reason is, and they either get interrupted or Eli stops himself. And that is just annoying to me because obviously that's going to play a part in the conflict and in the third act conflict. And I don't like that in books where somebody's constantly like almost telling the secret and then it doesn't happen, and that happens multiple times. Then I would much rather just them, like the group that's taking over, have like a pact where they're like, we never can tell and we never have these scenes of somebody almost telling. Or I just want fewer scenes, like have it just be once or twice where he's like, I want to tell you something, and then stop himself. But right now it just feels too much. And I know that they're not going to say what is going on because that obviously has something to do with the third act conflict. Anyway, so I just prefer Ellie Hazelwood writing a romance where she focuses more time on the emotional connection. I just think she just shines in that. And this just, I don't know, I feel like this just is not really doing it for me too much. Okay, so I'm just editing this video and I did want to clarify a little bit. Obviously, Allie is free to write whatever kind of romance she wants. In fact, I like that she experimented this year. Obviously, she wrote a young adult novel for the first time last year. She wrote a paranormal romance the beginning of this year, and now she's writing an erotic romance. Even though I've not read her young adult novel yet, I did really enjoy her paranormal romance. I did enjoy that she branched out a little bit from her typical STEM novels. In another universe, this might have worked for me, and I'm sure this book will work for some other people. It's just not my preferred way of her writing these types of stories. Like, I just prefer like her other type of romances. Don't take this as me bashing Allie, because it's not. Like, I've read 4 books by her, 3 of them I've given 5 stars, so definitely not writing her off. Okay, I'm here to give you my final thoughts on Not in Love, and I think when I last spoke to you, I said this might be a 3 or 4 stars. I have to say, every time I read like 50 more pages, the rating got worse. I'm gonna give it 2 stars. Like, there were points where I thought, okay, maybe 3 stars, maybe 2.5, but it's a 2 star. I genuinely dislike this book. And it makes me sad because Love Theoretically was one of my favorite books I read last year. And this was just a recycled plot, especially in the conflict department, as Love Theoretically, but she just did it a million times better in this one. I'm a little bit angry at this book, I'm not gonna lie. I just did not love it. The main reason, like I said, was the imbalance in the relationship. Like, this man was literally willing to almost give her his kidney. That is how fucking whipped he was. And she was not even willing to fucking skate with him. That is how imbalanced it was. And it kept happening over and over and over again. Like, I genuinely lost respect for this man halfway through. Like, the things he did, it was just pathetic. It was truly pathetic. And they even call it out in this book. Let me actually refer to my notes, because at one point I just started highlighting things that I just didn't like about this book. Okay, so I'm just gonna quote you. There's something I want to do for her, but I'm not sure she'll accept it if it's for me. And his friend says, shouldn't you just keep a tiny bit of your dignity? This man had no dignity, not at all. I truly did not understand why he loved her. Like, every time he confessed his love, I was like, but why? Like, what is so special about her? Like, she did nothing for him in this relationship. Everything came from him. And she wasn't even willing to give him like the teeniest thing back. Like, even in the epilogue, and I'm not spoiling it, but so they met through this dating app. The epilogue is 1 year later, so they've been dating for 1 year, and she still has that dating app. Like, she didn't even feel the need to remove her dating app for her fucking boyfriend. Like, I did not like her. She was very unlikable. And I know that that's supposed to be that way, but I've read unlikable characters before. In fact, I've even read books where the balance was a little bit off. In fact, just for the summer, there was an issue with imbalance here. The hero definitely did more in this relationship than the heroine. Like, he was honest from the beginning. He wanted to have a relationship, and she constantly kept him at a distance, but she did give him some things. Like, she was willing to try things with him. Even though there was an imbalance here, it was not near as an imbalance as this one. And this was one of my favorite books I read this year. This was just bad. I'm sorry, I cannot say it even more than that. And the amount of sex they were having wasn't even that good. And this is not even me hating erotic romance, because I read Sierra Simone and I loved her erotic romance. Allie Hazelwood just is not good at writing erotic romance, because even though this was way smuttier than the rest of her books, she still did not go near as in detail as she could have. Especially if I compare her to like a Sierra Simone or a Harley LaRue or a Katie Robert. So this didn't work as a erotic romance, in my opinion, because I've read way better erotic romances, but it never worked as a romance because it focused on the sex too much. Like, even their epilogue starts off with a couple pages of them having sex. Like, at that point, I just don't give a fuck anymore. I just don't care about their romance. I don't care about the sex. And at that point, you just lost me, because I love smut. I really love smut in books. Like I said, I read a lot of it, and this just did not work for me. This just felt like a recycled plot, but with a lot more smut, and the smut wasn't even good. I think that is how I can sum it up. If you enjoyed some plot lines in here, you didn't really love this book, and you haven't read Love Theoretically yet, I would highly recommend it because this is a way, way, way better book in my opinion. And I felt like Ali was trying to give them like another type of intimacy by them revealing secrets to each other, and that just did not work for me. That just felt like, oh, I need to give them something. So it's not just the sex, but it still didn't work. I never believed in their romance, and them telling stories to each other does not a romance make, in my opinion. Also, I felt like she needed to do some major groveling. She never did. Like, not at all. Like, she never really changed. He just gave and gave and gave, and that is just not an interesting romance to me at that point. Because like I said, it just made me lose respect for him, because even at one point he does get angry because she does something, and he never follows through on it. They end up having sex, and it was just lackluster. Like, and some lines in here was just cringy. Like I said, he was a simp for her. Like, if she told him to follow her around like a puppy, he would. And I would have been fine with that if Eli was described as a submissive guy. But he was described as the exact opposite of that, which made it even worse. Like, this is supposed to be a dominant guy, and we had 2 scenes where he was the dominant one, yet he kept, even like in the relationship and in the bedroom, he kept capitulating to her. They mention it. Let me actually see if I can find it. Okay, so yeah. So at one point they have a conversation. He tells her, but since you came to me, I figured we could do things my way. And she says, we always do things your way. Bitch, that is a lie. So he tells her, do we? And then she's like, we didn't, and I knew it. Since the very start, I'd been the one setting boundaries, making requests, building fences. His role had been well defined. Respect my wishes, follow my lead. This perfectly describes their romance and the imbalance of it. I'm always fine if it starts off imbalanced. Usually it starts off that way. With a lot of romances, usually the guy in the romances is not really interested in a romance. It never really became balanced. Like, we never really got to see them in a balanced relationship. And then even, like, literally in the same scene, he's like, you'd rather shut up than lie, which that is not true. She literally lied to your face like a moment ago. So it's just sad because I know she can do better, and this just was not it for me. I'm gonna stop now because I've ranted enough. I honestly say, I don't think I would recommend this. Like, if you are an erotic romance reader, I wouldn't recommend it. And if you're a regular romance reader, I also really wouldn't recommend it. I just think that she's done this before and done it way better in her other books. So I started Leather and Lark. And right now I'm on page 150 out of 390. With this book, I'm also listening to it while reading it. And I have to tell you, the Irish accent of the guy that is voicing Lachlan's point of view is so fucking hot. Like, I could listen to that man read me a grocery store list. Okay, so this is the second book in the, what's this series called? In the Ruinous Love trilogy. Each book follows a different brother. So in the first book, you followed Rowan Kane. This book, you follow Lachlan Kane. And it's his relationship with Lark, who is Sloane's best friend from the first book. And this series is basically like serial killer rom-coms. I do have to say, this one I'm liking a little bit more, and it's because it leans a little bit more towards the darker stuff and less so towards the rom-com stuff at the point where I'm at in this book. Lachlan Kane is a contract killer, and he wants out of that life, but his boss refuses because of something that happened a couple years ago. Something happened between him and Lark. They didn't know each other back then. And because of that, one of the biggest contracts pulled out, and now Lachlan has to stay and work that job to pay back his boss. And then he meets her again because obviously his brother is marrying her best friend. And once they realize who each other are, they instantly hate each other, even though they literally like minutes before they kissed. He doesn't recognize her because she was wearing this like Harley Quinn makeup. She recognizes him by his voice and accent. So they immediately hate each other. But so she's from this family, like mob family, it seems like. Her family members are getting killed one by one, and her family thinks it's Lachlan doing that. So they are planning to kill him. So her aunt clues her in, and she tells her, if you want to protect him and also protect Rowan, then you have to marry him, because once your family realizes that you love him and you're married to him, they will not harm him. So even though she hates him, she doesn't want Rowan hurt, because obviously Sloane is her best friend and she doesn't want to cause her any pain. So she suggests that they marry, Once she explains it to him, he reluctantly agrees. So this is basically a marriage of convenience, romance, which I love. And that's basically where I'm at this in this story. Like I said, so far, so I gave the first book 3 stars, even though that was a lot of people's favorite book last year. It wasn't mine. I read it in October, actually. My opinion at the end of the day was I didn't really like that the rom-com-y stuff took away from the more heavy explanations of why these people were the way they were, because both of them had dark pasts. I do feel like we already saw some things in here where this book leans a little bit more towards their darker sides and their darker pasts, and a little bit, oh, okay. Did you hear that? That was fireworks. Oh, that is fitting considering there is a brutal fireworks scene in this book. It leans more towards that because he's obviously a contract killer. She is secretly killing pedophiles. I'm enjoying this book. I know it's gonna get hot because Butcher and Blackbird had some really hot sex scenes, so I'm very much excited about that. So far, where I'm at now, they only had that one kiss I talked about, but there's already like, I like his point of view more because it seems like he's getting endeared to her. There's already a scene where she was up late, singing a little bit on her guitar, like reciting this number sequence, and he feels horrible because he knows that it's partly because of what he did that first night they met that traumatized her. Like, she's not just a serial killer, she's also a singer, actually. So that's where you see, like, there's a guitar here, there's a microphone here. So yeah, like I said, so far, if you enjoy audiobooks, I would recommend this one because, like I said, I love the guy that's doing his voice. And I like in this that this is actually, what's that called? Dual narration. So the male audiobook narrator does the male voices, even though we're in her chapter, and the other way around. I like that. Sometimes I have issues with like female narrators trying to do a male voice or male narrators trying to do a female voice. So I like that, especially when there's accents involved. But yeah, I am enjoying this. The plan is to definitely finish this today. And tomorrow, actually, I just got an appointment for the hairdressers and I'm gonna do a keratin treatment. So that means I'm gonna be sitting there for 8 hours, and going there also takes about an hour, and going back also about an hour. So I have about 10 hours to read, which is exactly what I'm gonna be doing. So I'm gonna bring so hopefully I will have finished this before tomorrow, and then I have the other 2 books that I for sure will bring with me because I'm bringing my phone, my Kindle, and I think I'm bringing the physical books too. So hopefully I can switch between those to give me the ultimate reading experience. I cannot really listen to an audiobook while in the hairdressers because it's like with chemicals and stuff, but very excited about that. So I guess the next update, you'll see my hair a little bit shorter, and I'll give you like my final thoughts. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I'll update you tonight once I actually finish it. We'll see. And if not, I'll do an update tomorrow with everything I finished then. Yeah, it's actually good that they got me appointment tomorrow because I will not have any distractions. I can just focus on reading while they are working on my hair. So okay, so I spent like 8 hours at the hairdressers today, so that was a long time obviously, but I did finish 2 books. So I finished Leather and Lark actually right before going to the hairdressers, and then the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore I finished most of it while I was there, then I just finished the rest. So I don't know if you can see it, but they cut off a little bit, and mostly I don't have to straighten it every day, like the top part. So yeah, I'm happy with it. I get it done every 6 months. So my thoughts on Leather and Lark. I gave this book 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I don't know if it technically deserves 5 stars. I don't know if I would have given it 5 stars had I read it any other time. But since I was reading books for this vlog, which most of the books that get nominated are kind of similar in that, I don't know, that they're not, like I told you earlier, like I'm craving like a filthy, smutty indie book. And this kind of delivered on that front. Even though this didn't have a lot of sex in it, but when they finally got around to having sex, it was filthy in the best way. There is a crawl to me scene, which if you have watched some of my videos, you know that is kind of my catnip. I eat that shit up. Coincidentally, two of my favorite books of all time have a crawl to me scene. So whenever that's in a book, I eat that shit up. Yeah, I really liked it. Like I said, a lot of people that loved Butcher and Blackbird seem to not really like this one. Since Butcher and Blackbird was not really my favorite, I preferred this one. Like I said, I liked that it was a little bit darker and not as much rom-com-y. Yeah, I don't know. I kind of like this the storyline in here where there was kind of like at one point a mystery going on because people in her family were getting murdered. And since, like I said, he was a prime suspect, they kind of had to also figure out who was actually trying to kill her family members. I loved how possessive he was. Like the amount of times this man said, "my wife." I don't know. I stopped counting. That's how much he said it. I loved how much he craved her and how much he called her his wife. So this is very much Grump Sunshine too. He's very grumpy, but I like that. The way the voice actor also portrays him, like very growly voice. There were some things where I was like, okay, so that's kind of like, I didn't understand. Like, so Sloane is her best friend, right? And she knows all about Sloane's serial killing. Like, it wasn't really that well explained why she never told Sloane about her own multiple deletion practices, as she likes to call it. I do have to say, so this is not in the content warnings. Let me see. Oh, yeah. Okay, so there is an injured dog scene that just broke my heart. It is in the trigger warnings, but that was kind of hard to read. I know other people get hurt in this book, but the dog he broke my heart. So one thing I have to say, so I know I listened to this on audiobook while reading it, and the female voice actor, she sings too, which I really liked. So if you can get a hold of the audiobook, try and listen to the parts where she's singing, because I definitely enjoyed that. This is slow burn. And one of the issues I had with first book was that it was too slow burn for me, but this felt like a little bit less slow burn. Like, yes, the amount of pages was probably the same, but as far as amount of time is concerned, I believe Butcher and Blackbird, it took them 3 years for them to finally make something happen, whereas in this book, I think it's like a year. They meet again after their fated first encounter. Yeah, so during the wedding of Rowan and Sloane is when she tells him that they need to get married. So yeah, and then they like live together, and because they live together and see so much of each other, that's when they actually fall in love with each other. I love the nicknames he has for her. Like, it starts with Blunder Barbie and then it's Duchess. I love when he calls her Duchess. It's so swoony. And I really love how fiercely loyal and protective she is. Like, she's willing to get married to somebody that she hates, who literally traumatized her, just to protect her friends. And then once she cares about him, she's also fiercely loyal and protective over him too. So yeah, I have to say I really enjoyed it. This is not for the faint of heart though, because like one of the first scenes is a very disturbing torture scene. Even though like these books are described as rom-coms, I mean, it does have still like brutal and disturbing graphic scenes. So if you know you cannot handle that, then I would say don't read it. But if you can, and you can listen to the audiobook, I would say listening to it while reading it is a great way to go. I think those are my thoughts. So the reason I'm flying a little bit through this update is I'm currently editing the video. It's already almost 3 hours long. So, and I still need clips from 1, 2, 3, 4, like 4.5 books. So including this one, so this is the half one. So let's continue. Like, this rambling isn't helping any. So I'm on page 116, a funny story. And I'm really, really, really loving it. For those of you who don't know, this book is about Daphne. And Daphne basically moved to this town for her fiance. The day after his bachelor party, he comes home and tells her that he cheated on her with his best friend, like his childhood best friend. And he's gonna be leaving her for his childhood best friend. And he's giving her a week to move out of his house. On that same day, the boyfriend of his best friend comes to Daphne's house because he also just got dumped. And she asks him if she can stay with him. So basically, she's moving into her ex-fiance's new fiance's ex's house, if that made any sense. So Miles and Daphne both got dumped, and their exes are getting together. It's gonna be their romance. So this is also a fake dating romance because the exes are assholes and they invited them both to the wedding. After a drunken night out, they decide to RSVP to their wedding. And when her ex Peter calls her, she tells him that she's coming with her boyfriend, Miles. And Miles agrees, Miles thinks it's hilarious, so they're fake dating now. Like I said, I'm really loving it. First of all, I love the way this story starts off because by this, the way I'm telling you the synopsis, you sometimes with these kinds of stories, you actually get a good chunk of her actually still being in a relationship with Peter. That's not how this story starts off. The story starts off with her actually already living with Miles, and we get like a chapter of like background information of how she ended up living where she's living. She's a librarian, which I love. I love the fact that Emily Henry always has one or both characters doing something related to books. Also, I love their banter together. They have some A-class banter. Like, I just was reading a chapter where I laughed out loud a couple times. On the surface, these two are very opposites, but like I said, they have great chemistry and great banter together. Daphne grew up with only a single mom and they moved around a lot. So she has trouble letting people in because in her world, people are leaving or she's leaving. And there's actually a great quote that I'm gonna read out to you that kind of describes the way she feels about relationships, whether that be romantic or platonic. Okay, so basically she's out with a coworker and the coworker is asking her about Miles and why she's fake dating him, stuff like that. She's debating whether or not she should tell the story. And this is basically her inner monologue. I grimace, debating how much more I should divulge. This is my problem. I don't know how to talk along the surface of things, but I also don't want to unearth the ugly stuff. Over and over again for people who are just passing through my life. It's depleting. Like every time I dole out a kernel of my history to someone who's not going to become a fixture in my life, a piece of me gets carried away, somewhere I can never get it back. You can't untell someone your secrets. You can't unsay those delicate truths. Once you learn, you can't trust the person you handed them to. That is heartbreaking, and it's also very relatable. I'm sure we've all had somebody that you've considered a dear friend and that you have told basically everything to, and then at like one point you're not friends anymore, yet they know you very well, or they know like a past version of you very well. That is difficult. So I definitely related to that. So far this feels like a 5-star. Like I said, I've had moments where I felt so sorry for these two. I had moments where I laughed out loud a lot. Also, Peter sounds like the douchiest man ever. Both Peter and Petra are the type of people that I cannot stand. The fact that they can callously and so easily hurt people. Like, Petra literally left Miles just a note breaking up with him. But yet constantly, even after they've broken up and she's seemingly happy with her new fiance, she keeps checking in on him, and Peter does the same thing, and it's very annoying, like pretending to be these good people in public. I cannot understand how you can hurt somebody you claim to love this badly and this callously. Of course we've read friends to lover stories where I can definitely believe that like you don't realize you're in love with somebody until like a big event happens, like his bachelor party, for example. But I think Peter loved her all this time, and he was just waiting for her to finally make the move. And I think that because like the way he thinks about Miles and the way he thought about Miles all this time. Anyway, I am very excited to see what else is gonna happen. So she wants to leave and he doesn't want her to leave Miles. So now they just made this deal where every Sunday he'll show her around the town, because he's like, you moved here because of him. I don't want you to leave here because of him. But then, on the other hand, she doesn't really have anything that she can stay for except for her job, which she does really love. But other than that, it's not like she has a lot of friends here. But it does seem like she's making some friends now. So obviously she's gonna stay, and he's gonna be one of the reasons why, but he's not gonna be the only reason why. I also really love seeing her at work. She's a children's librarian, so you can see her reading to these kids and her bonding with these kids. That is very cute as well. So every Sunday he's gonna just show her around town and give her reasons to stay. So I really like that as well. And I really do hope we're gonna get to see the wedding and get to see them be there for the wedding, because I just loved how that all played out. Sometimes fake dating is a god tier trope in my opinion, but sometimes the reason for fake dating is very convoluted and doesn't make any sense. I think in this case it definitely does make sense, and it was very organic how it happened. Like I can definitely, like if I put myself in her shoes, I can definitely see myself do the exact same thing. Yeah, especially if I RSVP'd drunkenly to this wedding. Like I cannot take that back now. Now I need to come and have a fake boyfriend with me. So yeah, also there was this scene with them on this beach and them taking pictures for social media. I don't know, that felt so romantic to me, and then that turned into her being cold and him holding her. Like so far they have great chemistry, like I said. She's very attracted to him, and this is single point of view, so we don't actually get to see his point of view, but it's obvious that he likes her too. So yeah, I'm just gonna continue and have a good old time. Hopefully I can get halfway through. That would be great. And then, like I said, hopefully I can finish it tomorrow. I should have just vlogged my thoughts when I actually laughed out loud. If I have more thoughts, I will do updates along the way. If not, I'll just give you my thoughts once I finish. Okay, so I finished Funny Story yesterday and I really loved it so much. I thought this book was beautiful. I think this is my favorite Emily Henry, actually. I really loved Happy Place when I read it last year, and I do remember once I finished it, I felt similarly, but at the end of the day, it didn't make my top 15 of 2023. So I guess time will tell if I love this book just as much once I actually finish the year off. But right now, I really loved it. I love both Daphne and Miles. I love the banter in this book. I love how much they loved each other. I love the slow burn of this romance, even though there were moments where they obviously kissed because of the fake dating and also because they thought each other was attractive. It does take a while before these two get together. I love the found family in here. I love how she made her own friends with Ashley and all of that. And I also loved his sister and how much she played a part in this book. And once again, this is a roommate to lovers trope, which I really love. I love how they built a solid foundation of friendship first. Like I truly believed that they knew each other through and through. My only criticism I have is, so this is a single point of view. So we know Daphne through and through, like we know all her struggles, which is fine. I mean, I get that. But with Miles, even though we do at the end of the day, we find out what is going on with him and why he has the issues he has. I wish she would have spent a little bit more time explaining his past, just talking a little bit more about his past and what happened there. I just feel like the way they talked about it was a little bit surface level. I wish the conversation was a little bit longer and we really got into the nitty gritty of things. I feel like there was a little bit of an imbalance of how much we knew about her and her past and how little we knew about his. But having said all that, it's still a 5 out of 5 stars. That little criticism doesn't take anything away from this book. I loved these two so much. Like I could see them vividly in my mind and I could see them vividly just being together. I love their little dates together on Sundays where he showed her around. I loved how they were the opposite. Like everybody just instantly fell in love with him, and I love how charming he was, whereas she had like the other thing. Like she kept people at a distance and she didn't let anybody close, and like you actually had to earn her time, I guess, which I also really loved. I also love how realistic this is. Like there's a scene in here where she does something a little bit shitty to a friend of hers. And I have had that happen to me in the past. And I love how that was resolved. Like, yes, in friendships, you can make mistakes. In all relationships, you can make mistakes. And I love how this book was honest in that you're going to make mistakes. But as long as you own up to that and ask for forgiveness, usually if a person loves you, and if you don't make a habit of doing those things, they will forgive you. And I did love that. I love how we saw that in a romantic relationship, but also in a friendship. I love how this was, as much as I do love romance, obviously, I loved how this was balanced. It was equally about the romance, but also about her and her learning to trust other people. And like I said, the found family in here was beautiful. This feels like my favorite Emily Henry. I do have to say, I probably should reread this one and read Happy Place before I can make that judgment. But for right now, this does feel like it's my favorite. I just love it. I love it so much. I would definitely highly recommend this. And this actually reminded me a little bit of Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. So if you really really love this and you have not read Just for the Summer yet, I would highly recommend it. And the other way around, if you read and really love Just for the Summer, I think you're really gonna love this one. I think those are my thoughts. I would highly, like I said, highly recommend it. So I started and finished The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore today. I really, really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. So you follow Hazel and Noah. So Hazel is the bookstore manager in town, so the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore. The reason it's called the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore is every Sunday they also sell cinnamon buns. So I've not read the first book. I don't know. So that happened in my last Goodreads Choice video too. And I am wondering if my experience would have been a little bit better had I read the first book. But like I said, I did enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars. So like I said, you follow Hazel and Noah. And Hazel, she's almost turning 30 and she feels like she's never really lived. So she basically lives the life of a grandma, basically. So she doesn't feel like she had a real 20s experience. She really wants to get out there and try to cram in her 20s in these last 2 months before she turns 30. So she's thinking about that. And then she finds these books that give her ideas of things she should do. And Noah is basically always up for an adventure. He's the fisherman. He likes to sleep with the tourists that come to Dream Harbor. But he has been buying a book from the bookstore every week. Hazel's friends think he has a crush on her, but she doesn't think so because she doesn't think that she's attractive or sexy or that somebody would, and especially not somebody that looks like him, could have a crush on her. But she does think that he's up for a good time. So she asks him if he wants to have these experiences with her. Basically, anytime she gets like a prompt for something to do from these books that are marked, he will go with her to do those things. So some of the things they do is like go and eat strawberries, I guess, in a strawberry field. And they go to the beach and stuff like that. He is a pining hero because he has been pining for her for a year. And actually, and this was so attractive to me. So basically, if you could not tell, so he was not a reader before, but since he had a crush on her, he went to the bookstore, bought a book just so he had an excuse to talk to her. But it did get him into reading. So he really loves reading now because of her. And stop, I love that. That is so cute to me. Like, that is really all I want in life. Also, this is sort of like an older woman, younger man book because she's 30, he's 25, which I guess if it was the other way around, if the man was 30 and the woman was 25, nobody would bat an eye. But I mean, I'm 31 and I would definitely think twice if somebody who was like 25 had a crush on me. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's relevant to mention. I definitely enjoyed this book. I love this town. Obviously this, like the fact that her name is Lori Gilmore, definitely very inspired on, I don't know if her name is actually Lori Gilmore, but if it is, I mean, how fitting, because this definitely gives Gilmore Girls vibes, like this small town. They have these town meetings and it has an eclectic mix of people in this town. A part of me is sad that I hadn't read The Pumpkin Spice Cafe before, because I feel like some of the characters that are mentioned here, it was kind of assumed that you know like their backstory, which obviously I didn't since I hadn't read that book yet, but I'm looking forward to reading it. I think I'm gonna be reading it in December if I have the time. Yeah, this was just like an enjoyable romance. I don't think I'm gonna be thinking about it too much over the years, but I did enjoy my time. I thought the romance was cute. Yes, some things could have been better developed, because I think what would have made this a 5-star was if we got like a little bit flashbacks of him actually pining. You guys know, if there's a pining hero, I want to actually see him pine. And there was like a lot of miscommunications where they talked about stuff, but things were not actually explained. And then it took some other character to explain it to them when the love interest could have easily explained it to them. Like, could have easily explained it to the other characters. So that happened one too many times in my opinion. And what I also, going back to what I like how he had some issues with his family. So basically his family has this very big company. He never wanted to be a part of that. He also dropped out of high school because he cannot really study. So he feels like he has disappointed his parents and especially his dad. So he stayed away from his family for years, even though he has nieces he really loves and he loves his sisters. And I liked how that storyline was resolved in this book. Like, it kind of made me cry a little bit. Like, I didn't actually cry, but it made me want to cry when that storyline was resolved. So yeah, I enjoyed this book. This was so cozy. I think this is perfect to read around this time of year. And yeah, if you love like small town romances, if you love Gilmore Girls, I would say definitely pick this series up. I think you can like it, but it's really nothing new. Like, I have read better small town romance books, but it wasn't. I liked reading it, and I flew through it. Like I said, I finished this book in a day, which obviously there was other circumstances, and I wanna, like, this video is going up tomorrow, so there's a clock ticking. But I do think if I'd read this in any other time, I would have also finished it fairly quickly. So yeah, would recommend this one. So now I only have to finish one other book, and it's How to End a Love Story. And like I said, I want to upload this video tomorrow. Actually, if you're still here and you've watched up to this point, let me know by leaving me a green heart emoji for my favorite color, because if you've done that, then you are like the real MVP. Because like I said, I'm editing it now. You've been watching for almost 3 hours, so props to you. And I really hope you enjoyed this video and it's not just like boring for you. So I started Bride by Ali Hazelwood, and I'm flying through it. I am on page 251, so I'm over halfway through, and this is so good. Like, this is everything that I love and more. So those of you who don't know, this is a werewolf vampire romance. You follow Misery, and this is told in single point of view, but every chapter has a snippet of the hero's point of view, which I love that as well. So Misery is a vampire, and in this world, vampires, humans, and werewolves, they know about each other, but they're technically mortal enemies, especially the werewolves with the humans and the vampires. The humans and vampires have had this reluctant truce going on, and basically that truce is held in place by leaving a vampire child in human territory and having a human child in vampire territory. And Misery used to be said child. Like, she lived 10 years with the humans, and because she felt like she never really fit in with the vampires, because she lived so long with the humans, she's been living with humans ever since. And she has a best friend who's human. Like, she's basically her sister. They grew up together. And one day her sister is gone and she's trying to find her. Around that time, her father wants her to marry a werewolf because they also want to have an alliance. She doesn't want to do that until she realizes that the alpha may have something to do with the disappearance of her friend. So she agrees, and they end up getting married, which this is all in like the first 2 chapters. So she goes and lives with the alpha and his clan, and he has a little sister who's like the cutest little girl in the world. I really love her. Her name is Anna, and she's so adorable. And I really, really love Misery. Like, she is so hilarious. Like, I laughed out loud a lot of times throughout this book. I thought that she was such a great character. I love her so much. And I really love Lo, who's the alpha. He's such a good guy. He's obviously a very good guy. I read Love Theoretically by her last year, and I really fell in love with the hero in that book more so than the heroine. In this case, it's technically the reverse, even though I love Lo because he's a werewolf and werewolves are my favorite paranormal creature. I feel like Misery is the one that really shines in this book. But yeah, this book has everything I love about werewolf romances as well. I love the clan, I love like the alphaness, I love that she even feels the need to submit to him even though she's technically not of the same species. And I also love, like, there's a scene in here where he has to mark her and has to like put his scent all over her, and I died. I literally, like, I almost died reading that. That was so hot, and everything I love about werewolf romances. And of course, it's an Ali Hazelwood book, so of course our heroine is a very smart heroine. Like, she knows a lot about like biology and about computers and stuff like that, and the hero is woefully ignorant about those things. Yeah, I am thoroughly enjoying myself. I'm just like living my best life. I really think that Ali shines in this book, and I obviously have not finished, so I don't know for sure, but I'm already intrigued by other characters in this book, so I really hope that this will be her first series. I really hope that this is not a one and done for her. I really want her to write more in this paranormal world. I'm really enjoying it. And what I also really like about this book is that the explanation for why they are human, why they are werewolves and vampires, I really enjoy, because that is one thing I loved about Shiver. I know Shiver is not a lot of people's favorite books, and I understand why, but I did love the fact that Maggie had an explanation for why they turn into werewolves. Like, even if it's bullshit, I just want, like, I like that there's like a biological explanation for something happening. If an author took the time to do that, and of course Allie, it's not surprising to me that Allie would go that route. So yeah, I'm enjoying it, and I guess I'll just update you once I finish, but this will probably be a 5 stars. Unless something goes very, very wrong in the last 150 pages, I don't see this being anything less than 5 stars. So I just finished Bride, and I really loved it, as I knew that I would. I gave it 5 stars without a shadow of a doubt, and if this is not going to be a series, I'm going to riot, because I already want Owen's story and I want Serena's story. Serena's has been a little bit set up at the end, and I cannot wait. Yeah, the second half was just as good as the first half. I still loved everything about Lo and Misery. I also really love Owen in this book. Even though we didn't get to see a lot of him, the things we did get, I really enjoyed. And like I said, hopefully we'll get his story as well, which Owen is Misery's brother. I just love the werewolf lore in here and the vampire lore and everything about it. And I also loved, so obviously they do have sex eventually, and I did also enjoy that. This is Allie's smuttiest book so far, which it's not overly smutty, not like a lot of other books, but for her, usually she only has one sex scene and it's pretty mild. This has multiple. And I really enjoyed this book. I would highly recommend it. And I really hope that because of this book, it will spark some more like mainstream paranormal books. I just love paranormal romances. I do. I've always loved them. I just hope more authors will be inspired to write it because of the success of this one. I enjoyed every single second reading this book. And like I said, I really loved Anna as well in here. Sometimes kids get annoying. She was perfect. I love how she mispronounced things, how she called her Miracy. She was just so adorable. I just wanted to take her home with me. I really loved it. And like the third act conflict in here, I thought was done great as well. It didn't bother me at all. So yeah, I would say definitely read this book if you haven't already. And this might be a good intro to you for like werewolf romances, like paranormal romances. If you've loved Allie Hazelwood books in the past, I think you'll really love this one. Yeah, I would highly recommend it. If you've been debating whether or not you should pick this up, I would say go for it. It's not that long. And I would say that if you read like the first 100 pages, it will give you a good sense whether or not you'll like this book. Yeah, for me, the first 100 pages, it was pretty clear that I was gonna love these characters and that I was gonna love this book. So it is a good indication. And yeah, I'm very, very glad that I read this. Okay, so I'm on page 215 of How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwong. So this book, you follow Helen and Grant, and you start the book off with Helen attending her little sister's funeral because her sister committed suicide. And the way she did that was she jumped in front of Grant's car, so he technically killed her. They used to be in high school together, Grant and Helen, but she and her family blame him for the fact that her sister is dead. Even though from what I've read, it was really not his fault. Like, her sister was on drugs and was definitely deemed a suicide. Helen now is a famous young adult author, very successful one, and now they want to make her book series into a TV show. Grant is actually a TV show, like a script writer, which funnily enough, I'm pretty sure Yulin Kwong is the script writer for one of Emily Henry's books. So when they are making up these scripts, it does feel authentic. So when Helen meets him again, she wants him to quit. She doesn't want to be in the room with him. She still blames him for everything that happened. And obviously, seeing him reminds her of that time. And he doesn't want to quit because he needs to pay for his mortgage. He hasn't had a good job in a while, so he refuses to quit. And while they're working together, they're first bickering, and then she has this kind of sex dream about him. And they do get closer. During the holidays, they both travel back to the East Coast to see their families, and they are on the same plane, and then they start slowly getting to know each other again, or like know each other for the first time, because in high school they weren't in the same circles. He was the popular kid, she was like the nerdy one. And eventually their dislike turns to lust, at least where I'm at now. So where I'm at now, they've had some like sexual interactions. And this is told in dual point of view, and they switch point of views in the chapter. So that does make me fly through this book. I'm also listening to it on audiobook while reading it. So there are like paragraphs. So you have a paragraph from Helen's point of view, and then sometimes you switch to Grant's point of view. So that makes it easier for me to be like, okay, just one more paragraph. Because the goal is so I started it yesterday. Did I? Yeah, I started it yesterday. And I have to finish it today because it's going up today. So I have about the audiobook is a good indicator, obviously. So the audiobook tells me I have about 2 hours left. So that's good. Right now it is 1:30. Anyway, moving on. That's neither here nor there. I have to say I really like it. So this doesn't have the highest rating, and I was looking at some Goodreads reviews before starting it, and I was really dragging my feet because of those reviews. And I do have to say I am not really agreeing with those reviews. So far I'm enjoying it. It does make sense that, like, on the one hand, it makes sense that she's still holding on to that past because he is so extremely linked to the night that her sister died. But on the other hand, now that all those emotions have subsided and hindsight of 13 years, it makes sense that she's getting closer to him because, like, I have to believe that she knows it wasn't his fault that her sister died. Also, I like the fact that there's so much therapy talk in here. He sees a therapist, he has panic attacks, and you see those on page. Obviously that night did a lot to him too. And she's going to therapy. One thing I do have to say, so the book starts off with, or at least the dedication is for the eldest daughter of immigrant parents. This is a love letter for you too. So I am a daughter of immigrant parents, and so far I wish she dived a little bit more into that. Like, yes, we've seen some scenes about her and the way her family thinks about life and future and stuff like that. I feel like we haven't explored that area of her life as much. When we talk about her parents, is mostly related to the grief of losing her sister, which makes sense. Obviously, that is a big part of their family life, but I just wish we'd gotten a little bit more of her interactions with her mom and dad. But I'm sure we'll get that because they are coming to LA soon. Yeah, so far I'm liking it. If I were to give it a rating now, it would probably be a 4. I'm flying through it. I'm enjoying it. I like being in the writing room for this TV show. I do feel like, yes, they are having sex early, but I do feel like they're getting to know each other as more than that too. Obviously, they have a history. Like, they've known each other in high school. Yes, they may not really have been friends, but I don't know, I feel like there's some sort of camaraderie about people you've known when you were younger. Like, I don't know, it just feels like that is a part of you where you were sometimes at your worst. I don't know, I just feel like there's a special relationship there. Even if you weren't really close to some people in high school, they do know a particular point or part of you very well because like, high school, obviously, you're there every single day for 8 hours a day. So I don't know if I'm articulating myself well. As long as you've had, like, obviously a good experience in high school, I don't know. I look fondly at the people I knew in high school, and I would think that if I met them again, and that has happened in the past, like when I see somebody from high school again, it's always an easy conversation because you can always reminisce back to those days. And obviously they play a big part in your memories from back then. So it makes sense that they are getting this close this fast. And obviously they do share, like, a horrible experience in a way. So yeah, so far I'm enjoying it. So I'll be back with my final thoughts on this one and then do my final tier ranking and give you my average rating for this vlog. And then you can finally let me go after watching me for over 3 hours. So yeah. Okay, so I just finished How to End a Love Story. And it's right now 4:45 on Sunday. So I need to film this clip and then edit it. Hopefully it will be up around normal time. So I ended up really, really enjoying it. I just related to a couple different aspects of this book so much that I wanted to give it a 5, but objectively there were some plot things that I wish were done better that prevented me from giving this 5 stars. So I settled on a 4.5 stars. This romance is really relatable to me because of what happened like a couple months ago. Like I was in a similar situation and I was the Grant in that situation, unfortunately. So this romance had an expiration date, which they both knew, but obviously one fell in love with the other one. It was Grant, and he just broke my heart. The things he said, I just wanted to hug him. So at one point he says, let me read it to you. Okay, so he confesses his feelings on his birthday and she doesn't say it back. So he tells her, fine then, it's my birthday, lie to me, treat me like you love me back. Just stop it. That is heartbreaking. Like I said, that part was just way too relatable to me. Like some of the lines were verbatim things out of my own life. Like it felt like Yulin Kwong just plucked those memories out of my brain and put it in this book. Also, the whole immigrant family things, what I wanted when I updated you last, those things happened and I related to them. Like obviously it's not 100% similar because it's different immigration backgrounds. Obviously this is a Chinese immigrant family. My family is Iraqi. But a lot of things were similar, especially her complicated relationship with her mom. I do have to say my relationship with my mom now as an adult is definitely less complicated. But yes, I do remember when I was living with her, things that Helen said or thought were things that I thought about too, and also things that I struggled with. So that was very relatable to me. So even though, yes, I can say some storylines in here were objectively not the best, the fact that I connected to this book so much made me give it 4.5 stars. I do acknowledge that if you don't share those similar things that I mentioned, it might not work for you, because I do have to say, him jumping to love, I could not really connect the dots in this book. Like I felt like she needed to do a little bit more work, making it a little bit more believable, the fact that he loved her this fast. And she could have done it. I've read about it in other books when there is a romance that happens quickly. I need to believe that he loved her. And when he mentioned, like, as much as I felt sorry for him, and as like when I just read you that scene, that was the same scene. When he said the words, I love you, I was having like a whiplash. I was like, what, did I miss something? Like, how did he jump to love that fast? And I do have to say, I do feel like she should have groveled, because the ending, like, as much as I'm happy for them and I liked like the final chapter, but the way they got together, I felt like, yes, obviously this was not her doing, but the fact that she pushed him away so much and he tried and she pushed him away again, I just felt like if it was the other way around and the man pushed away the woman, 100% would he grovel. And so I feel like in this case, when it was the woman who pushed the man away, I feel like she needed to grovel a little bit more. And basically she just sent an email and he came running back to her. I didn't like that. That just feels imbalanced to me. And as you've seen from other clips in this vlog, if there's one thing that bothers me in romance is if it's too imbalanced. It's fine if it starts off imbalanced, but then if that's the case, that just means the person at the top needs to grovel more. And the fact that there was no groveling from her kind of bothered me. So those two things, the fact that the leap to love was a little bit fast in my opinion, plus the lack of groveling from her, made me have to give this book 4.5 stars, even though I really wanted to give it 5 stars. But I would definitely recommend it, especially if you're from an immigrant background. You also have had like a romance with an expiration date and one of them kind of left. I think you could definitely like this book. But I do have to say, I loved seeing all the LA things. Like, I've read a couple books about LA and I think I like this one the most because I just like being in that writing room, and I just really like this book. And I also like the complicated relationship. Like, it makes sense that she is apprehensive about loving him. Like I said, even though I still think she needed to grovel, but obviously her parents had real issues with him, even though it was not his fault. And I like that that was acknowledged on page by her, that it was not his fault. So yeah, I would say I would definitely recommend it. 4.5 stars. And let's just move on. Okay, so I calculated the average rating. So the average rating for the top 20 for me was a 3.7. So that is all 20. And then comparing it to last year. So last year, and so I can only compare the top 10, obviously, because my goal last year was to only read the top 10. The average rating last year for the top 10 was a 4.0 because I did have a DNF in the top 10. This year I also had a DNF, but it was not in the top 10. So, and this year the average rating was actually a 4.4. So it was higher, even though I felt like I had books that had lower average ratings. But that makes sense since I read the top 20. And I do want to compare Goodreads top 10 with my top 10 at the end, because I do think most of the top 10 of Goodreads is also in my top 10. Let's do the ranking now. So I'm gonna start with like my least favorite book and work my way up to my highest rated book. I'm gonna do it right here. So there's already a stack of books here, but that's only so you can see the actual top 20. So my least favorite book is the DNF. Obviously I didn't read it, but I DNF'd it for a reason. So Lies and Wedding by Kevin Kwan kind of gets a 0 star since I DNF'd it. So it's my least favorite book since I didn't really finish it. Can you see that? Yes. Okay, then number 19 is Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I gave this book 2 stars. My other 2 star is in place 18, and it's The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. In 17th place is This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune, which I gave 2.5 stars. Another 2.5 star is in number 16, and it's Daydream by Hannah Grace. In 15th place is Swift and Saddled by Lila Sage, which I gave 3 stars. Another 3 stars is The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood, and this is in 14th place. The only 3.5 star I had for this vlog is in 13th place, and it's This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. Starting from this point is 4 stars or higher, so these are all books that I would 100% recommend. I do have to say, out of this stack, there are still books I would recommend. They just didn't work for me for some reason, but all the other ones I would 100% recommend. Starting with my least favorite 4 star, in number 12 spot is King of Sloth. Can you see that? By Anna Huang. The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Laurie Gilmore is in 11th spot, and this one also got a 4 star. And now for my top 10 is The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. So this is in 10th place, and I gave this one 4 stars too. Then my favorite 4 star in 9th place is The Pairing by Casey McQuiston. Number 8th place is Play Along by Liz Tom Ford, which got a 4.5 stars. How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwan is in 7th place, and this also got a 4.5 stars. And the last 6 books all got 5 stars from me. In 6th place is Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver. In 5th place is A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. In 4th place is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. 3rd place goes to Funny Story by Emily Henry. 2nd place goes to Wild Love by Elsie Silver. And 1st place, my favorite book I read for this vlog, my favorite book in the Goodreads Choice Award, and the book I voted for twice is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. So these are my top 20. Let me actually tell you, let me grab the top 10. So this is my top 10. And let me take out the books that are my top 10 that didn't make it in the Goodreads Choice Awards top 10. So 7 of my top 10 were also in the Goodreads Choice top 10, which are Bride, Funny Story, Just for the Summer, Wild Love, The Paradise Problem, Play Along, and Leather and Lark. The 3 books that were in my top 10 that weren't in the Goodreads Choice top 10 were A Love Song for Ricky Wilde, How to End a Love Story, and The Pairing. Which makes me sad. All 3 of these are diverse books, and I thought they were good enough for my top 10. The 3 books that were in the Goodreads Choice top 10 that weren't in mine were these 3. King of Sloth, the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, and This Summer Will Be Different. Yes. Let me see if I gave you all my thoughts. Yeah, I think I did. I think I talked for way too much. I think I've taken up enough of your time. I would really love to know which book you voted for in this year's Goodreads Choice Awards, and let me know which book you would have loved to have made it in the Goodreads Choice Awards that didn't, because obviously this is a very particular list of only traditionally published books. Obviously, a lot of us on BookTube read a lot of indie books and other subgenres. So let me know which book you would have loved to see in the Goodreads Choice Awards. And like I said, which book you voted for. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. Definitely let me know by leaving a like if you did. And thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.